Chapter 370. The process of a cultivator's advancement was sometimes very long. Yang Tian nervously paced back and forth. After waiting for about an hour, he finally sat down on the ground. The little blue dragon didn't care about Soli's matters and had already flown out to play. During this hour, Soli's expression was very calm. It seemed that nothing unexpected had happened. As for the chaotic energy fluctuations emitted from her body, this was a normal phenomenon. "Master, a woman is visiting." Suddenly, the auxiliary device bell notified Yang Tian. The room on the first floor was also equipped with an advanced projection device. After bell notified Yang Tian, it showed the situation outside. As Yang Tian expected, Chu Yen Guing had indeed come. Yang Tian got up and walked to the door, personally opening it. After Yang Tian opened the door, Chu Yen Guing looked at Yang Tian with a concerned expression and asked, "Yang Tian, what happened?" Chu Yen Guing also felt the energy fluctuations emitted from the room. She thought that something had happened to Yang Tian. In the end, it wasn't Yang Tian. "I'm fine," Yang Tian said with a smile. While speaking, Chu Yen Guing glanced behind Yang Tian and saw a woman sitting cross-legged on the floor with her eyes closed. "She's advancing?" Chu Yen Guing asked softly. She guessed what had happened. Yang Tian nodded and let Chu Yen Guing enter the room. In order not to disturb Soli, the two didn't speak. The room was very quiet. Time ticked by slowly. After about an hour, Soli's body finally started to change. First, the aura on her body suddenly weakened, but in less than a minute, a strong energy fluctuation erupted from her body again. This kind of energy fluctuation was something only Star Realm experts could have. Not only did her aura change, but Soli's skin also suddenly turned dark red, and her body temperature rose at an extremely fast speed. Immediately after, the blood vessels under his skin protruded. They were dark red in color and formed a sharp contrast with his red skin. It looked as if his body was covered with tree roots. Soli also frowned. She looked uncomfortable and her body trembled slightly. "Will she be all right?" Chu Yen Guing asked worriedly after seeing the changes in Soli's body. Although he didn't know much about other people's cultivation methods, Yang Tian's perception of energy was very sensitive. He knew that Soli wasn't in danger yet, which was a normal reaction. He told Chu Yen Guing, "Don't worry, she's still fine." Chu Yen Guing nodded, finally feeling relieved. Although Chu Yen Guing and Soli didn't know each other, she knew that Soli was Yang Tian's friend, and they trusted each other. The change in Soli lasted for about half an hour. During this time, Yang Tian was on high alert, ready to help Soli at any time. If the energy in a cultivator's body became chaotic and out of control, they would need to rely on external forces to suppress it. Yang Tian was much stronger than Soli. This was also why Soli asked for Yang Tian's help. Another reason was, whoosh whoosh, suddenly, a chaotic airflow appeared around Soli's body. This airflow was caused by a special magnetic field created by the energy in Soli's body. As the airflow rose, Soli's loose robe fluttered loudly. Soli cultivated the aura power, which was a cultivation method that changed the body's cells from the outside to the inside. At this moment, it was a critical moment. The rising body temperature, faster blood flow, and higher blood pressure were the beginning of the transformation of the body's cells by the aura power. When human cultivators advanced, they would also cause some changes to the surrounding environment. It was just that the area affected was relatively small. This room was very sturdy, and Yang Tian didn't decorate it with vases or other decorations. Otherwise, the room would probably be in a mess. The airflow spun around Soli faster and faster. Soon, some of the items in the room were rustling. Soli's long blue hair was also blown close to her face by the airflow. Her expression couldn't be seen. Chu Yen Guing immediately took out her staff from her storage bracelet. She waved it casually in the air. Powerful mind power radiated from Chu Yen Guing, controlling the airflow within a certain range. Whoosh, as the airflow grew stronger, Soli's robe was suddenly blown open by the violent airflow, revealing her beautiful upper body. Seeing this, Yang Tian finally understood why Soli didn't let the Shenwu Academy's professors protect her. Perhaps she had expected something like this to happen. During the process of advancement, the body had to be minimized from the outside world. It was impossible to wear armor and tight clothes. If one wore a loose robe, some situations were unavoidable. Yang Tian only glanced at it and then turned around. This was too embarrassing. If Chu Yengying wasn't here, he could take a few more glances. Soli usually wraps herself up tightly. I didn't expect her to be so well endowed. What am I thinking? After turning around, Yang Tian still had the image in his mind. As a man, it was normal for him to think like this. When the image in his mind became a little blurry, for some reason, it suddenly became clear. Moreover, it was many times clearer than before. The image that was left in his mind was actually a little abstract, but the image that became clear was extremely clear. It was as if he was looking at it closely in reality. What was going on? Yang Tian was very surprised. As soon as this question appeared in his mind, the strange program's voice sounded. This is because of my help. When you humans don't deliberately remember things, you'll quickly forget after a glance. I can make up for this flaw, Yang Tian finally understood. In the future, please don't do such things without my permission, okay? Yang Tian said to the strange program in his mind. Understood. The strange program replied straightforwardly. The airflow that appeared on Soli's body soon weakened and finally disappeared. The energy waves emitted from her body calmed down as well. If nothing unexpected happened, Soli would soon complete her advancement. Her body would also become stronger and become a new life form. It's almost over, Yang Tian thought as he looked at the situation outside the window. More than an hour passed while Yang Tian, Chu Yengying, and Chu Yen waited. During this process, Soli's qi was stable for a while, but it eventually became weaker and weaker. In the end, the range of her qi was even weaker than that of a planetary state Star Lord. No. Yang Tian suddenly realized that something was wrong. He immediately turned around and walked to Soli. Soli was clenching her teeth, and her body was trembling even more than before. Yang Tian wasn't in the mood to appreciate Soli's beautiful body. He immediately took out the Star Warrior level beast core he had just obtained from his storage bracelet. Puff! Yang Tian crushed the beast core in half. Then, he pinched Soli's chin and stuffed half of the beast core into her mouth. Yang Tian did this because he sensed that Soli was lacking energy. The beast core that Soli had taken before had probably lost most of its energy due to its age. It wasn't enough to support Soli's advancement. With enough energy replenishment, Soli's qi began to recover. Eventually, the energy waves emitted from her body gave off a feeling of vitality. After making sure that Soli was fine, Yang Tian looked at the half-beast core in his hand. Just as he was thinking about what to do, the little blue dragon quickly flew over and snatched it away, eating it like a snack. This guy really knows how to grab the opportunity to eat. Just as Yang Tian was sighing, Soli suddenly opened her eyes. She had finally completed her advancement. Chapter 371. During the advancement process, Soli did not expect that there would be a lack of energy. If there was not enough energy to support the evolution of the body's cells, not only would she not be able to advance, she would also drop a level. If that was the case, she would not have to worry. She could just spend some time to make up for it. However, the academy had a strict assessment system. This kind of assessment mainly tested the speed of a student's progress. If she dropped a level, she would be eliminated in the next round of assessment and be forced to leave the Superstar Academy. In that case, her years of hard work would be in vain. Soli was not like Genesis Star and Genesis Glory, who had the support of a huge family. Like Yang Tian, she was a poor-class student. Once she left the academy, her future path of cultivation would be much more difficult. At the last moment of her advancement, Soli felt that there was not enough energy. She was extremely anxious and felt despair. At the last moment, she wanted to give up. Fortunately, Yang Tian immediately took out a precious beast core. Not only did it help her advance, but the cells in her body also became more vigorous due to this special process. Soli opened her eyes and looked at Yang Tian with a very grateful gaze. Yang Tian saw Soli's strange gaze and quickly turned around. He waved his hand and said, "We are all friends. Helping you is what I should do. Cough cough. Put on your clothes properly." As soon as Yang Tian's voice fell, Soli realized that the robe on her body had been pulled down to her legs. The private parts of her body were not covered at all. Yang Tian must have seen it clearly. This made her cry out in embarrassment. While Soli was hurriedly putting on her clothes, Chu Yen Guing, who was standing to the side, looked at Yang Tian with a bitter gaze. She knew that Yang Tian had left a deep imprint in another woman's heart. The most hateful thing was that this guy acted like a saint in love. Other than Qin Fei, who was in his heart, he treated other women. Chu Yen and Gu Ying felt that way. Sometimes, she tried to seduce him, but as long as she didn't go overboard, this guy actually accepted it calmly with a serious look on his face. Who knew what he was thinking in his heart? If it was an ordinary man who rejected a beautiful woman like this, he would have long been left behind tens of millions of light years away. However, Yang Tian always had a scent that attracted women. While Chu Yen Guing was lost in her thoughts, Soli put on her clothes and stood up. She was a bit embarrassed as she said, I'm done. Only then did Yang Tian turn around. "Hello, I'm Chu Yen Guing, Yang Tian's friend." Chu Yen Guing introduced herself to Soli. Soli smiled as she nodded at Chu Yen and Guing. "Hello, I'm Soli." Soli didn't say much. She didn't trust any of the students in this school except for Yang Tian. Chu Yen Guing was no exception. Therefore, in Chu Yen Guing's eyes, Soli's smile was a little fake. After introducing herself to Chu Yen Guing, Soli quickly walked to Yang Tian and said with some embarrassment, "Thank you for just now. I will return your beast core to you. Then, I'll go back first." After saying that, Soli turned around, opened the door, and left. Yang Tian, who understood Soli, didn't care at all. However, Chu Yen Guing frowned with dissatisfaction. Chu Yen Guing stayed with Yang Tian for more than an hour. After eating a barbecue with Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, she reluctantly left. In 2 days, she would be leaving for the bubble-shattering space. She had to make some preparations. Soli returned to her residence. After closing the door, her face suddenly turned red and her heart thumped. She didn't know why this happened. For a moment, her mind was filled with Yang Tian's figure. However, she soon forced herself to calm down and open the school system. At this time, Soli was still not an advanced student. She had to inform the school's professors to test her. After becoming an advanced student, she could accept the training program that the school had just released. The next day, not long after Yang Tian woke up, the support device bell notified Yang Tian that Soli was already outside the door. Yang Tian immediately let Bell open the door. A series of da-da-da sounds could be heard. What surprised Yang Tian was that Soli seemed to have dressed up meticulously. Normally, she always wore a set of black armor, giving people the feeling that she wasn't a woman. Today, however, she was wearing a black lace dress. Yang Tian could tell that the dress was a new brand created by the sisters, 7 Light Rain and 7 Kai. This black dress made Soli's perfect figure look even more beautiful. She had a head of long blue hair. Although she didn't wear any makeup, her skin was more tender, delicate, and lustrous than before. This situation was the same for Qin Fei. Cultivation was to let people develop in the direction of perfection. Men who cultivated would become more and more handsome, and women would become more and more beautiful. In addition, Soli was also wearing a pair of high heels. He didn't know when she bought them. Seeing Soli's appearance at such a close distance, Yang Tian couldn't help but be stunned. He wasn't stunned by Soli's beauty, but he didn't understand the situation. If a masculine woman suddenly changed her style and became a lady, her friends would be like Yang Tian if they saw it. Seeing Yang Tian looking at her strangely, Soli couldn't help but smile and say, "Yang Tian, I've already become an advanced student. I'm living next door to you, room 098. Room 098, isn't it occupied?" Yang Tian was surprised when he heard Soli's words. Soli's mouth curled up and said in a disdainful tone, "I asked that guy to change rooms with me. When he heard that I wanted to spar with him every day, he immediately agreed. An opponent like him isn't worth my time. Yang Tian, I'll have to trouble you in the future." The meaning of Soli's last sentence was obvious. In the future, she would often spar with Yang Tian in the academy. Yang Tian smiled and said, "Can I change rooms with you?" After saying that, seeing Soli's puzzled expression, Yang Tian couldn't help but smile. "I'm joking with you. After the training, you're welcome to spar with me at any time." Soli nodded happily. Then, Soli suddenly stepped forward, hugged Yang Tian's waist, and pressed her face against Yang Tian's chest. "What's going on?" Yang Tian couldn't help but open his eyes wide and stare blankly. "Let me hug you for a while," Soli murmured while Yang Tian was at a loss. Yang Tian was at a loss. He felt that Soli's hands were getting tighter and tighter as she hugged him. He couldn't help but put his hand on Soli's shoulder unnaturally. Phew! A few minutes later, Soli let out a long breath and let go of Yang Tian. She said with a relaxed expression, "Yang Tian, thank you. I feel much better now." After that, Soli took a few steps back and took out a folded black armor from her storage bracelet. She handed it to Yang Tian and said, "For you." "Oh, okay." Yang Tian was stunned for a moment before he took the armor. Chapter 372. You haven't prepared the armor yet, have you? Soli asked after Yang Tian received the black armor. Yeah. Yang Tian nodded. In fact, Yang Tian was also prepared to order a set of armor because the bubble burst space was a special place. There was no water or air, and even a star-grade powerhouse wouldn't be able to last long if their body was exposed inside. Consider it my gratitude to you. Soli had never given anyone a gift before. Plus, she was a little embarrassed about hugging Yang Tian earlier. After that, he turned around and walked towards the stairs. As he walked, he said, "I'm going back. See you then." "Oh, okay." Yang Tian immediately nodded. The sound of Soli's high heels gradually faded away. Yang Tian looked at the black armor in his hand and was momentarily stunned, speechless for a long time. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Not long after Soli left, the little blue dragon appeared and jumped onto Yang Tian's shoulder, letting out a series of squeaks. It told Yang Tian that Soli had fallen for Yang Tian. This was the so-called, the onlooker sees the clearer picture. Even the little blue dragon could see it. Yang Tian was certainly not stupid and had already realized this problem. Moreover, it wasn't just Soli. Even Chu Yen and Guiying were the same. Yang Tian wouldn't believe it if it was said that he didn't have any thoughts about these two women. However, Yang Tian also understood that people couldn't act recklessly because of feelings. When it was time to restrain himself, he still had to restrain himself. Although the matter with Yang Nancy was drugged, Yang Tian still felt that he had let Qin Fei down. At this time, he didn't want to have anything to do with other women. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Seeing Yang Tian frown and remain silent for a long time, the little blue dragon said to Yang Tian, "If you like her, then do it." Before the little blue dragon could finish speaking, Yang Tian knocked him on the head, and his cries stopped abruptly. Under the little blue dragon's gloomy gaze, Yang Tian smiled and said, "Do you think I'm like you dragons?" Whenever he saw a female dragon that he liked, he would go for her. You make it sound so awesome. When we reach the dragon starfield, I want to see your performance. The little blue dragon immediately raised its head. Roar! A dragon's roar filled with male hormones spread out from Yang Tian's villa, attracting the attention of many people. Yang Tian asked Belle to check on this black armor. Very quickly, he found out that this black star armor was priced at 20 million star crystals outside. Although the black star armor was not the best in the universe, it was still considered a high-end product. The reason why it was sold at such a high price was because it was worth it. The material used to make this armor was extracted from the outer shell of a type of insect. It was even harder than the outer shell of a normal space battleship. Just the material used to make this armor was worth millions of star crystals. Other than the material, the armor was also equipped with high-tech machinery and various sophisticated instruments. At the same time, it also made use of rune technology. When this armor was stacked together, it looked like a piece of black metal. It was about 1 meter long, 70 centimeters wide, and 10 centimeters tall. Some runes could be seen on the surface. After asking Belle to check on the black star armor's information, Yang Tian also found out how to wear it. Next, Yang Tian placed the armor on the floor and pressed a button on it. The AI program on the armor made a sound, prompting Yang Tian to authenticate it. This was just like the authentication process when Yang Tian received the storage bracelet. After passing the authentication, only Yang Tian could wear this armor from now on. After a simple authentication, Yang Tian took off his clothes, leaving only his shorts on. Standing on the black cube, Yang Tian spread his legs and opened his arms under the instructions of the armor's AI program. Ka ka ka! The sound of hard materials rubbing against each other could be heard. The black cube suddenly changed. Parts appeared one by one. First, it covered Yang Tian's legs, then Yang Tian's abdomen, chest, arms. In less than 10 seconds, Yang Tian's body was covered with a layer of black armor. Even his head was completely covered. Then there was a soft sound. The inside of the armor was filled with a special gas that was a mixture of oxygen and other gases. This made Yang Tian feel that the air he breathed in suddenly became much fresher. At the same time, Yang Tian's vision also changed. The range of his vision suddenly expanded. Even if he did not move his eyes, he could see the situation on his left and right clearly. Other than that, the flow of air outside was also sensed by the armor's sensors. It was amplified into a kind of signal that was received by Yang Tian's tactile nerve. Also, Yang Tian felt that his body had become much lighter. This was because the armor had offset a portion of the planet's gravity. As soon as he wore the armor, Yang Tian felt extremely comfortable. If he were to wear this armor in battle, his combat ability would at least increase by a few %. Yang Tian finally understood why many cultivators would wear armor when they had nothing to do. Wearing this kind of armor not only increased one's combat ability, but it also made one's body lighter. It was even more comfortable than wearing clothes. The material of the black armor was filled with a metallic luster. Its surface was engraved with runes. These runes looked like decorative patterns, but they had the effect of offsetting the power of the armor. According to the information on the Black Star armor, the amount of power a unit could withstand, under the condition that the armor did not break, could offset more than 30% of the power of the armor. The normal power of the cultivator could also be absorbed by the armor, increasing the defense of the armor in an extremely short period of time. After putting on the armor, Yang Tian turned around a few times and said to the support device Belle, "Belle, turn on the projection. I want to see how I look like." "Yes, Master," Belle replied and immediately turned on the projection. In the projection, Yang Tian's current appearance appeared. From the projection, Yang Tian could also see how he looked wearing the armor. Every piece of the armor was designed according to the curves of the human body. When worn, it would not look as bloated as the armor worn by the ancient people on Earth. In some key areas, beautiful decorations were added. For example, on the shoulders, there were two protruding flame-shaped horns. Not only did it make the wearer look more powerful, it could also be used as a weapon in battle. Other than the shoulders, there were also flame-shaped spikes on the knees and elbows. As for the helmet, it looked like a beast's head with two curved bull horns. In battle, these horns could also be used as a weapon. Mask open. Helmet off. Armor. Next, Yang Tian kept trying out some of the armor's functions. When the armor was worn, it could maintain its human form and be placed in a room as a decoration. It could also change back to its original square shape and be worn at any time. After a series of tests, Yang Tian was very satisfied with the armor. If not for the fact that he was about to go out and train, he would have worn the armor and sparred with Soli. Chapter 373. These runes, they are too simple. After Yang Tian took off the armor, the strange program's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Yang Tian was stunned. Although he had accepted the fact that a program was stored in his mind, Yang Tian was still not used to hearing such a voice in his mind. Too simple? Why do you say so? Yang Tian was stunned for a moment before he reacted and asked with a frown. The strange program said, "Don't forget, I am made of runes. No one understands runes better than me. If you trust me, I can help you perfect it and increase the defense of this armor by at least 10 times. So awesome! Yang Tian did not believe the strange program's words. Increase by 10 times. That was too exaggerated. The strange program knew what Yang Tian was thinking and said, "If you don't trust me, then forget it." Yang Tian said, "I don't believe what you say, but even if you say it will be doubled, I am willing to give it a try." The strange program said, "If you do that, it will damage the outer appearance of the armor. The human who designed this armor is too shallow in the use of runes." Yang Tian ignored the program's boasting and said, "Don't waste your breath. Teach me how to do it." The strange program said, "Even if I tell you how to do it, you won't be able to do it. Your control of your body is not as stable as a machine." Of course, Yang Tian understood this and said, "Don't tell me I still have to find a machine?" The strange program said, "No need for that. You just need to prepare a high-temperature cutting tool and temporarily hand over control of your body to me." This. Yang Tian hesitated when he heard that. No one wanted to hand over their body to someone else. Although the strange program was not a human, it was just an AI program. Seeing Yang Tian hesitate, the strange program said, "If you don't trust me, then this matter cannot be done. I am temporarily unable to control mechanical equipment. As the saying goes, you can't trap a wolf without sacrificing a child. If you want to get some benefits, you have to pay a price." Yang Tian thought for a moment and said, "All right." As for high-temperature cutting tools, Yang Tian had purchased a lot of equipment before he went out with Soli. Among them was a black tube about 10 meters long and 3 centimeters in diameter. It was a high-temperature cutting tool. It looked small, but it could spray out high-temperature and high-pressure flames of more than 10,000 degrees. Could cut through almost all hard materials made by humans. Although the material of the Black Star armor was tough, it was not so tough that it could not be cut. After Yang Tian took out the black pipe, he twisted it forcefully and a nozzle popped out from one end. He twisted it again and a light blue flame sprayed out from the nozzle. This flame was extremely small. As soon as it appeared, Yang Tian felt the surrounding temperature rapidly rise. "What do we do now?" Yang Tian asked after turning off the flame. The strange program said, "Relax your body. Don't use any telekinesis on your body. Just watch. In the following work, if you use any telekinesis on your body, it's possible that the runes on the armor will be crooked and lose their effect." "I understand." Yang Tian nodded. A moment later, Yang Tian let out a long breath and relaxed his body. After all, controlling one's own body was a very natural thing. It took about an hour for the strange program to be satisfied. Then, something that surprised Yang Tian happened. He did not use any telekinesis, but his body moved. During this process, Yang Tian was like a spectator in his own body. This process was not as simple as Yang Tian had imagined. Under the control of the strange program, after just a few movements, a consciousness to control his body appeared in his brain. Just like that, his first attempt failed. Your body and your consciousness have the highest degree of compatibility. Even the slightest movement of your consciousness will destroy this process. The strange program did not show any emotion. Its voice was still as calm as before, without any hint of displeasure. "Sorry, let's try again," Yang Tian said, a little embarrassed. "This is a very complicated process. It's already very impressive that you can do it in such a short time," the strange program said, and once again took control of Yang Tian's body. This time, Yang Tian tried his best to control himself. After more than 10 failures, the strange program finally told Yang Tian that he could begin. It also reminded Yang Tian that the next step was very important. If Yang Tian moved, the runes would be crooked. After reminding Yang Tian, the strange program took control of Yang Tian's body. It opened the cutting device and picked up a piece of armor. This piece was a vambrace for the left arm. Buzz buzz, when the small light blue flames came into contact with the surface of the armor, there was a series of cutting sounds. Immediately, small marks appeared on the surface of the armor. The strange program took control of Yang Tian's body, as if it was controlling a machine. During this process, Yang Tian noticed that his hands did not even tremble. When he was on Earth, Yang Tian had wanted to do this. He had even created the snow cleaver. At this time, he could not help but think that if he could do this, the cutting power of the blade he swung would be unimaginably strong. Also, when he released the blade aura, if he used his mental power to control the blade aura to produce a sharp energy edge, what kind of situation would that be? Origin power was already very strong. If he added the terrifying cutting power, the more Yang Tian thought about it, the more excited he became. Sensing Yang Tian's mental activity, the strange program stopped after carving a line on the armor. It said to Yang Tian, "What you're carving now is a very simple rune line. If you continue to be so agitated, I don't need to tell you the consequences, do I?" With the strange program's reminder, Yang Tian finally calmed down. Just as the strange program said, if during the carving process, he could make his body shake with just a thought, the runes would be distorted. Carving runes was a precise process that did not allow for the slightest flaw. After Yang Tian calmed down, the strange program continued to command Yang Tian's body. The strange program took almost an hour to carve the runes on the vambrace. The armor had dozens of parts, and there was no telling when it would be completed. Chapter 374. A day's time passed very quickly. Performing precise movements for a long time would cause some damage to the body. Fortunately, Yang Tian's body had an amazing recovery ability. If it were an ordinary person, they would not even be able to last half an hour, let alone a whole day. As time was tight, Yang Tian only rested for 3 hours before continuing. As the process progressed, the strange program's work efficiency increased. In the end, it took about 10 minutes to complete the carving of a part. Using the time on Earth, it took about 40 hours for the strange program to complete the modification of the armor. After the carving was completed, the strange program said to Yang Tian, "The process was perfect. Because it was modified from the original rune, it can only increase the defense by about 10 times. If you want to use this kind of armor in the future, it's best to have it custom-made." Yang Tian nodded. This was a good suggestion. In this aspect, Yang Tian had some experience. The next time he did this kind of complicated and precise work, it would be much faster. Moreover, Yang Tian also gained many benefits during this process. That was the precise control of his body. Although Yang Tian-do did not use his consciousness to control his body during the process of inscribing the runes, his body's movements, nervous reactions, etc. were all recorded in his mind. Yang Tian recalled this feeling and was not in the mood to pay attention to the armor. He immediately went down to the first floor and took out a red saber from his storage bracelet. Hiss! As soon as he took out the saber, Yang Tian quickly swung the saber. Yang Tianwu's saber technique was based on the profound of the snow cleaver saber technique. Just as he expected, Yang Tianwu's movements were much smoother. He did not need to guess to know that Yang Tianwu had improved in the snow cleaver saber technique. This was also thanks to the strange program. After practicing a set of saber skills, Yang Tian stood quietly and closed his eyes to recall the process. Only then did he open his eyes and put the saber away in his storage bracelet. After putting away the sword, Yang Tian returned to the living room on the second floor and put on the armor again. Although the runes on the armor had been changed, Yang Tian found that the armor had not changed much after putting it on, except for its appearance. Yang Tian asked Bell to activate the projection. Looking at his projection, Yang Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly. After changing the runes, the armor was a lot uglier than before. It no longer had the luster of before and looked a lot older. The runes carved by the strange program were like scratches, messy and without any pattern. Yang Tian didn't care about this. As long as his defense was improved, it didn't matter if he looked a little ugly. If he had the armor, then what about Chu Yengyang? After putting away the black star armor, Yang Tian suddenly thought of this question. He knew that Chu Yengyang did not have that many stellar crystals. Yang Tian immediately contacted Chu Yengyang through the communication device. What surprised Yang Tian was that Chu Yengyang had already prepared it, and it was even prepared for her by the academy. This kind of treatment was simply indescribable. While feeling envious, Yang Tian was also relieved. If Chu Yengyang had not prepared the armor, he wouldn't mind ordering another set of black star armor. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was time to set off. The spatial coordinates of the bubble-shattered space were confidential. When it was time to set off, the participating advanced students had to gather together and set off through the Academy's teleportation formation disk. On the first day, Yang Tian received the notice to set off. Early in the morning, he took the little blue dragon and sat in the small car that the Academy had specially sent to pick him up. The small car sped forward and arrived at the Academy's teleportation formation disk 10 minutes later. Under normal circumstances, the Academy's teleportation formation disk would not be casually used by students. However, this was a special case. The moment Yang Tian arrived, he took off his helmet. Seeing Yang Tian arrive, Soli and Chu Yengyang quickly walked over. Soli was wearing the same black star armor as Yang Tian, while Chu Yengyang was wearing a set of blue armor. Both of their armors were brand new. There were already many people in the teleportation hall, and most of them were wearing brand new armor. It seemed that they had all made ample preparations for this training. Yang Tian, what's up with your armor? Soli asked after arriving in front of Yang Tian. She could see that the armor on Yang Tian was the one she had given Yang Tian the day before yesterday. She didn't expect it to become like this in just one day. I changed some of the runes. Although it's a bit ugly, its defensive ability is much stronger. Yang Tian scratched his head and smiled. You know runes? Bald-headed Soli asked curiously after hearing Yang Tian's words. I know a bit. Yang Tian didn't know how to explain, so he could only say so. He couldn't possibly tell the two women that there was an AI program in his brain, could he? The little blue dragon that usually lay on Yang Tian's shoulder had already changed its position. When Yang Tian spoke, it stuck its head out of Yang Tian's helmet and looked at the two women with wide eyes. The little blue dragon that had grown up was like a human going through puberty, curious about the opposite sex. Of course, it wasn't interested in women, but it thought from Yang Tian's point of view and was very curious about the two women together. There was a hollow space at the top of Yang Tian's helmet, which was just enough for the little blue dragon to rest on. It was much more comfortable than lying on Yang Tian's shoulder. Other cultivators wouldn't allow a pet beast to lie on their head, because these people saw pet beasts as a kind of combat tool. There was a difference in status. Yang Tian didn't even think about this problem. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. There were many other advanced students in the hall. They were attracted by Yang Tian's armor and looked over. When they saw the little blue dragon lying on Yang Tian's head, some of them couldn't help but pout. When did you learn runes? Runes are very difficult to learn. At this moment, Chu Yen Guang looked at Yang Tian with admiration and asked. After saying this, Chu Yen Guang glanced at Soli. I just learned it. It's not that complicated. Yang Tian smiled. Are runes that simple? Just as Yang Tian's voice fell, an old man's voice came from the side. Yang Tian could hear the dissatisfaction in the old man's voice. Yang Tian, Soli, and Chu Yen Guang all looked in the direction of the voice. Two old men were walking towards Yang Tian's group. One of them was the professor of Xinwu University, and Yang Tian couldn't be more familiar with him. The other old man looked about the same age as the professor, and Yang Tian had never seen him before. The Superstar Academy was very big, and there were many professors. Yang Tian couldn't possibly know all of them, and he hadn't been in the academy for long. This unfamiliar old man was tall, had a square face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes, giving off a very dignified feeling. He wore a black robe that was covered with white runes. Chapter 375. What surprised Yang Tian was that he couldn't sense any energy fluctuations from the old man. Professor Xinwu and this strange old man quickly walked up to Yang Tian's group. At this moment, all the students in the hall turned around and stared at Yang Tian's group. Haha! Let me introduce you. This is Professor Fu Wei, a professor in the academy who specializes in runes. Professor Xinwu introduced Yang Tian's group with a smile. Yang Tian, Soli, Chu Yen, and Guang immediately bowed to the old man. Professor Fu Wei sized up Yang Tian's armor and slowly walked around Yang Tian. Soon, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Professor Fu Wei suddenly stopped and looked into Yang Tian's eyes. He asked indifferently, "Did you add these runes?" Yang Tian nodded. Yang Tian wasn't lying. These runes were indeed carved with his own hand. Very good. When this training is over and you come back alive, you can come find this old man. Professor Fu Wei nodded to Yang Tian and turned to leave. Professor Xinwu turned around and glanced at Professor Fu Wei, then looked at Yang Tian with a smile. This old man has a strange temper. I didn't expect him to be convinced by you. Yang Tian scratched his head in embarrassment when he heard the professor's words. Soli asked, Professor Xinwu, I heard that the academy will send 2 more professors this time. Are they you and Professor Fu Wei? Professor Xinwu nodded. Yes, other than us, the temple will also send people over. For you, this is just a training program, but for the temple, this is very important. The body of the Flying Cloud High Priest must not fall into the hands of others. Although this training program is dangerous, it is also a great opportunity. The academy fought for it with great difficulty, so you must cherish it. After the Xinwu professor finished speaking, he turned around and left. Looks like this experiential learning program isn't as simple as gaining credit, Yang Tian thought to himself. After waiting for about half an hour, they were ready to set off. There were actually more than 150 advanced students gathered in the teleportation hall. The number was much higher than Yang Tian had expected. From the looks of it, most of the senior students in the academy had participated in this experiential learning program. When the time was up, Professor Xinwu and Professor Fu Wei walked in front of the teleportation formation disc. The teleportation array disc had already lit up with a blue light, activating the teleportation. The Shenwu professor waved his hand, and the high-ranking students gathered in the hall took the initiative to gather around. Glancing at the students, Professor Shenwu said seriously, "I'll say it again. Although there are generous rewards for this training, it's very dangerous. There are more than 100 of you, and it'll be good if 50 of you can come back. It's not too late for you to give up now. For students who give up now, the Academy will not deduct your credit. I'll give you 10 breaths of time to consider. Those who have changed their minds can leave now." After Professor Shenwu finished speaking, he looked at the high-ranking students with a dignified gaze. Many students, seeing Professor Shenwu's dignified gaze, couldn't help but lower their heads. This old man usually has a kind appearance, but when he's serious, he's quite scary. Yang Tian thought to himself. 10 breaths of time, which was the time for 10 slow breaths, was less than a minute apart. What surprised Yang Tian was that not a single person gave up, because the benefits of this experiential learning were really too tempting. It was worth risking their lives for. After the time had passed, Professor Shenwu's face showed a helpless expression. He shook his head slightly and said, "In this world, there are always some people who don't understand themselves. When there are benefits, they rush forward, but when it's time to give up, they decisively give up. If you throw away your life for face, then isn't your life too cheap? If you give up now, no one will look down on you." Just as Professor Shenwu said this, a few advanced students walked out of the crowd, heading towards the door. Clearly, they had given up. Following that, more than 20 people gave up one after another. These 20 advanced students weren't very strong in the academy. Under Professor Shenwu's persuasion, they finally gave up. Seeing these students leave, Professor Shenwu nodded. Next, it was Professor Fu Wei's turn to speak. Professor Fu Wei's words were unpleasant, but they were true to the situation. He said, "Professor Shenwu and I will accompany you all to the outside of the bubble space, but we won't follow you in. This is because if we can't help but release our energy, the bubble space will be destroyed. Only cultivators like you with average energy levels are suitable to enter. Outside the bubble space, Professor Shenwu and I can guarantee your safety. But once you enter the bubble space, we won't be able to do anything. If you have any grudges, you can take this opportunity to settle them. The Academy won't pursue any responsibility. Also, if you're killed by someone outside the Academy won't avenge you. Everyone knows this rule, so I won't say more. Since you want to die, then get ready." Professor Fu Wei had just finished speaking when a few more advanced students left. Professor Fu Wei didn't even look at them as he said indifferently, "Let's go." With that, Professor Fu Wei was the first to step onto the teleportation array disc. A second later, his figure disappeared from the teleportation array disc. It was time to set off. The students put on their helmets and sealed their bodies tightly in their armor. As the two professors were talking, Yang Tian sensed that someone not far from him kept turning his head to look at him. Yang Tian knew that this person was Taichu Yao, a member of the Taichu family. The people who had appeared during the Little Blue Dragon's advancement were definitely related to Taichu Yao. If Taichu Yao hadn't been hiding in the academy all this time, Yang Tian would have killed him long ago. This time it was a good opportunity. Professor Fu Wei was right. The bubble space was a good place to kill people. The moment the students put on their helmets, Yang Tian turned his head. Taichu Yao happened to be looking at him as well. When their gazes met, Taichu Yao's eyes flickered coldly. Yang Tian's lips curled up in disdain when he saw Taichu Yao's expression. This sort of person could only rely on his family's power to act arrogantly. If he were to fight Luo Yunyang openly, he would definitely be scared to death. Yang Tian also understood that the Taichu family would definitely use this opportunity to get rid of him. Yang Tian wasn't afraid of this at all. Outside the bubble space, Professor Shenwu and Professor Fu Wei were present, so the people of the Taichu family wouldn't dare act recklessly. However, inside the bubble space, Yang Tian wasn't afraid of anyone. After all, the little blue dragon's combat strength was already comparable to a Stargrade domain lord. Chapter 376. After putting on the helmets, Yang Tian, Soli, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying waited quietly. The teleportation speed was very fast. On average, a group of people could be teleported every 5 seconds. The advanced students in the hall disappeared one by one. In the end, only Yang Tian, Soli, Chu Yen, and Professor Shenwu were left. Seeing Professor Shenwu looking at him with a smile, Yang Tian joked, "Professor Shenwu, I want to give up now." "Okay. Then you can leave," Professor Shenwu said as he walked in front of Yang Tian and sized up Yang Tian. Just as Yang Tian was about to say that he was joking, he suddenly found himself flying and smashing into the array disk that was emitting a blue light. When the blue light disappeared, Yang Tian looked up and found that the students who had passed through the teleportation were looking at him strangely. Some of them even had mocking expressions. Yang Tian smiled awkwardly, climbed up from the disk, and walked out. A few seconds later, Soli, Chu Yen, and Professor Shenwu appeared on the teleportation disk. This was an unfamiliar place to the students. There were black rocks everywhere, and there were no plants. The Black Star armor reported the environment to Yang Tian. There was no air here, and the temperature was extremely low. There was strong cosmic radiation. Obviously, the place Yang Tian and the others stepped on was a meteorite floating in space. Near the disk was a silver spaceship about 50 meters long, with a flat, triangle shape. The advanced students present were all wearing armor that sealed their bodies. Only Professor Shenwu and Professor Fu Wei were naked. In this harsh environment they were completely fine. This showed Yang Tian what a true powerhouse was. After everyone had arrived, the students boarded the spaceship one after another. Then, the hatch of the spaceship closed, and the spaceship took off. It soon entered superluminal speed, which was the space jump state. On the spaceship, more than 100 people sat in a spacious resting cabin. They were all wearing armor that sealed their bodies. No one spoke, and the atmosphere was very dull. The spaceship took off, and about an hour later, it finally stopped. The window display in the lounge was also turned on, allowing the students to see the situation outside. The starry sky outside was extremely bright. The spaceship had actually stopped near a star. Being so close to the star, one could imagine how high the temperature outside was. At this time, in addition to the spaceship Yang Tian and the others were in, there were many small spaceships not far away. These spaceships were densely distributed in the nearby space. Their colors, shapes, and sizes were all different. Yang Tian estimated that there were no less than 1,000 spaceships. There were actually so many people. What secrets did the superstar divinity temple's flying cloud great priestess or this bubble space? There were actually so many people here. Many of the senior students, including Yang Tian, were puzzled when they saw the situation outside. "Everyone, get ready. The bubble burst space is about to open." Professor Fu Wei's voice suddenly rang out. Some of the students who had taken off their helmets after boarding the spaceship immediately put them back on. At this time, a bright light flashed outside. Yang Tian looked and saw that a spaceship had exploded. There was no need to guess to know that there were people fighting outside. The time for the bubble burst space to open was getting closer and closer. Some people couldn't wait any longer and started fighting at this time. The explosion of a spaceship was like a chain reaction. The battle outside was getting more and more intense. In addition to the exploding spaceship, one could also see the light produced by the cultivators flying at high speed. Not long after, a wave of chaotic energy fluctuations came. From these energy fluctuations, Yang Tian sensed that there were actually superclass experts among the people fighting outside. In the lounge, Professor Shenwu and Professor Fu Wei only glanced outside before looking away. It seemed like they weren't interested in the battle outside. Time ticked by slowly, Suddenly, the students in the lounge suddenly stood up, including Yang Tian. This was because they all knew that it was time to depart. A powerful spatial energy fluctuation came from outside. Students, it's time to depart. Good luck. At this time, Professor Shenwu stood up and said lightly. At this time, the spaceship's door opened. After exiting the resting cabin, the students quickly ran towards the cabin door. After exiting the spaceship, there was no gravity. More than 100 students were suspended in space. At this moment, in the space several kilometers away from Yang Tian's group, a large black hole suddenly appeared. From the looks of it, it looked like a circular black mirror that was suspended in space. This was the entrance to the bubble burst space. It was about a few hundred meters in diameter. Its size was constantly changing and was extremely unstable. Superstar Academy's spaceship was the closest to it. Obviously, it had been precisely calculated. As soon as the entrance appeared, two figures rushed out of the spaceship. One went left and one went right. These two people were Professor Shenwu and Professor Fu Wei. What are you looking at? Hurry up and go in. After Professor Shenwu and Professor Fu Wei rushed out, Professor Shenwu's voice sounded in the students' armor. The students stepped on the spaceship and catapulted toward the entrance. Yang Tian, Soli, Chu Yen, and Guing also took the opportunity to step on the spaceship and rushed toward the bubble burst space's entrance. You people from Superstar Academy move really fast. In the process of rushing to the entrance, a middle-aged man's voice was heard. Immeasurable Star-Lord. Then, Professor Shenwu's voice also appeared in Yang Tian's ears. The universe was a vacuum. Sound could not be transmitted. He did not know how these powerhouses did it. Immeasurable Star-Lord. Yang Tian was suddenly stunned. He turned his head and looked behind him. He did not see anyone who looked like Immeasurable Star-Lord. Although Yang Tian had never seen Immeasurable Star-Lord, he knew that Immeasurable Star-Lord was his father-in-law. Why did Immeasurable Star-Lord come at this time? With this question in mind, Yang Tian and the other advanced students plunged into the black entrance. From the outside, the entrance looked thin, like a black mirror. But after entering, it was a dark passage without any light. At this time, he could not borrow any force and could not see the people around him. Yang Tian could only let his body rush forward. During this process, the little blue dragon poked its head out of Yang Tian's helmet and looked around curiously. Its glowing dragon eyes were particularly bright in the darkness. Chapter 377. The black tunnel wasn't long. 10 seconds later, Yang Tian's eyes lit up. A huge gray meteorite appeared in his line of sight, growing bigger and bigger. There was more than one meteorite. Yang Tian was considered lucky. At least the meteorite blocking his way was still far away, giving him enough time to deal with it calmly. As for the other students, many of them didn't have enough time to react and crashed into the meteorite. Of course, the impact wasn't violent. They were all star-level powerhouses and could use the energy in their bodies to form a protective layer. They were also wearing armor with strong defensive capabilities. Although many of them crashed into the meteorite, no one was injured. Just as he was about to crash into the meteorite, Yang Tian released his mind power and pushed the meteorite in front of him. The effect of power was mutual. As Yang Tian pushed the meteorite, his speed suddenly slowed down and finally came to a stop. After stopping, Yang Tian immediately ordered the armor, activate the vacuum energy detection. The movement, impact, and vibration of objects were all a process of energy change. Besides air and objects, there were other ways to transmit sound. When Yang Tian activated the armor's vacuum energy detection, he heard a sound. In addition to sound, the armor also simulated a gaseous environment. This was a semi-virtual environment that was simulated based on the size and direction of movement of the surrounding objects. At that moment, Yang Tian felt as if his body was exposed to the air. There was a chaotic airflow around him. This semi-virtual function allowed the wearer of the armor to feel the changes in the surrounding environment and react accordingly in the shortest time possible. For example, if a meteorite the size of a fist crashed into Yang Tian from behind, Yang Tian would be able to hear the whistling sound behind him and the changes in the airflow. He would then be able to dodge it. Rumble, bang, bang. After the armor's function was activated, there were all sorts of crashing sounds around him. It sounded very mocking. Suddenly, a black metal chain shot out and wrapped around a meteor not far from Yang Tian. The metal chain retracted and a black shadow appeared in front of Yang Tian. After wrapping around the meteorite, the man shook the metal chain again. The meteorite that was wrapped by the metal chain flew to the side, and the man flipped over and landed on the meteorite. Of all the people Yang Tian had seen, Soli was the only one who could neutralize the impact with metal chains in such a short time. It was indeed Soli. She stood on the meteorite and waved her hand at Yang Tian. Although most of the armors were black in color and the style was almost the same, none of the advanced students who came here didn't know who Yang Tian was. That was because the armor on Yang Tian's body was really too unique. Yang Tian's strength was greater than Soli's, so his catapult speed was naturally faster than hers. After Soli arrived, Chu Yen Guing also arrived. Although Yang Tian and Soli were stronger than Chu Yen Guing, they weren't as calm as Chu Yen Guing in this situation. Chu Yen Guing, who was wearing blue armor, rushed out of the black passage like a nimble mermaid swimming into the sea. She seemed very free. After a few laps in the chaotic meteors, she stopped beside Yang Tian. The three of them soon gathered together. Yang Tian, Soli, Chu Yen Guing, and Chu Yen Guing arrived one after another. There were only about 10 seconds in between. After the three of them gathered together, they looked around. This was a space different from the universe outside. In this space there were no stars, only countless meteors. The meteors extended from the entrance where Yang Tian and the others were. There was no end in sight. The reason why this space was so bright was because there were many meteors radiating bright light. In addition to the meteors, there were also some fragments of man-made objects that looked like spaceship fragments. This space was much wider than Yang Tian had imagined before he arrived. Finding a corpse in such a vast space was like finding a needle in a haystack. Of course, it was impossible to find the human corpses scattered in this space by relying on the visual system alone. They were much smaller than the meteors. Although the experts had died and lost their aura of life, some of their cells might still be alive. Even if all the cells were dead, there might still be weapons and other items that could emit energy fluctuations on their bodies. In order to find these corpses, they had to rely on this method. Let's leave this place while there are still not many people. Yang Tian glanced around and immediately said to Soli, Chu Yen Guing, and Chu Yen Guing. After saying that, Yang Tian led the three of them to eject from the meteors and quickly fly away. In a space without air and gravity, using the reaction force of the meteors to move forward was the simplest and fastest way. Taichu Yao, who had been paying attention to Yang Tian and the others, looked in the direction Yang Tian and the others had disappeared in, and a sinister smile appeared on his face under the mask. With the Taichu family's ability, they had long since obtained the location of this bubble space, and had already sent people to wait for them. Outside the bubble space, after Yang Tian and the other advanced students had all entered the bubble space, Professor Shenwu and Professor Fu Wei, who had been waiting on both sides of the passage, flew back to the spaceship. To them, this escort mission was already half completed. Now, all they had to do was wait for the advanced students to come out or for the bubble space to be destroyed. Once the advanced students came out, they naturally had to go and receive them. If the bubble space was destroyed, they would immediately leave and return to the academy. After the two left, it was time for the Super-Star Divinity Temple's star-grade experts. A star-grade cultivator's position in the Super-Star Divinity Temple was above average. Under normal circumstances, they would obtain the position of Advanced Divine Guard, which was the role of captain or junior general in the Temple Guard Army. In order to obtain the position of Divine General in the Superstar Divinity Temple, one's strength had to be at least at the Superstar Divinity Temple. There were about 100 Divine Guards sent by the Superstar Divinity Temple. After these Divine Guards entered the bubble space, only then could the others enter. Other than the Superstar Academy and the Superstar Divinity Temple, there were many other factions. The Superstar Divinity Temple couldn't keep these factions out of the bubble space because the scope of the war back then had been very wide and many of their experts had fallen. The corpses of their seniors might have been left behind in the bubble space. Because of this, the Superstar Divinity Temple couldn't monopolize the bubble space that had been monitored for a long time. They only had the right to enter first. The Superstar Divinity Temple's strength was a lot weaker compared to when Shi-Chen was still the goddess. After the 100 or so people from the Superstar Divinity Temple entered, the others all rushed to the entrance. For a moment, figures kept flashing as hundreds and thousands of people rushed into the entrance. The cultivators who entered the bubble space couldn't exceed the Stargrade realm. This was a rule that everyone tacitly agreed upon and no one could violate. This concerned the lives of everyone in the bubble space. If someone of the Superstar realm or even higher tried to sneak in and was discovered, they would be surrounded and attacked. Among the people who entered the bubble space, there were dozens of people sent by the Taichu family. Chapter 378. The space inside the bubble was also filled with cosmic radiation. Yang Tian was still a little worried about the little blue dragon. But after this guy entered the space naked, nothing happened at all. As Yang Tian, Soli, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying moved forward, the little blue dragon crawled out of Yang Tian's helmet and swam around excitedly. Yang Tian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Humans and beasts, no, humans and divine beasts, really couldn't be compared. The space inside the bubble was extremely vast. After the more than 100 people from the Superstar Academy entered, they either moved alone or in groups of 2 or 3. They soon scattered like a handful of sand in a lake. After moving forward for more than 10 minutes, Yang Tian stopped. The further they went, the denser the meteorites became. At this time, it was time for the little blue dragon to make a move. Yang Tian grabbed the little blue dragon who was swimming around excitedly and asked with a smile, "Xiaolong, how is it?" Soli, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying didn't understand Yang Tian's question. After asking, Yang Tian let go of the little blue dragon. What did Yang Tian mean by asking this? In fact, before coming here, Yang Tian thought of many possibilities. In such a vast space, it was not so easy to find the corpse of a powerhouse. Any scientific instrument would be useless in such a situation. If one calmed down and sensed the energy in this space, forget it. In this case, it was simply a waste of time. Why? This was because there were simply too many people inside the bubble space. Before entering the bubble space, Yang Tian had already noticed that the surrounding space was filled with spaceships. There were 5,000 or 6,000 cultivators who entered this space, and there might be more than 10,000. With so many people scattered in space, everyone's body would emit energy fluctuations, and the instruments they carried would also produce such results. In this case, it was not impossible to calm down and sense the energy fluctuations to find the corpses left behind by the powerhouses, but it was simply too difficult. Fortunately, there was the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon's sensing ability, especially in terms of energy, until now, Yang Tian had never seen anything stronger than the little blue dragon. The powerhouses above the Superstar realm outside had more precise control of energy. They might be stronger than the little blue dragon, but they didn't dare to enter this space. Squeak, 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 the little blue dragon, which was released by Yang Tian, let out a series of cries. Even Soli, Chu Yen, and Guiying, who didn't understand dragon language, could feel the pride in the little azure dragon's voice. Stop talking nonsense, let's move quickly, Yang Tian said with a smile. The little blue dragon turned into a green shadow and disappeared from Yang Tian's line of sight. There was no fixed magnetic field in this space, and there was no direction. After the little blue dragon left, Yang Tian's group could only stay in place and wait for the little blue dragon to return. Although the two girls didn't ask, Yang Tian still explained after the little blue dragon left. Xiaolong's sensing ability is very strong. With it, we don't have to worry about nothing. After saying that, Yang Tian turned his head and looked at the blue-armored Chu Yan and Gu Ying. He asked, "This is a training program for the students. You're not a student, so how can you come with us?" Yang Tian had wanted to ask this question for a long time. Originally, he thought that it would be even better if Chu Yan Gu Ying couldn't come with them. She wouldn't have to take the risk and could just stay in the academy. With the academy's resources and support, she wouldn't have to worry about the test. She could keep improving without any problems. Once Chu Yan Gu Ying cultivated to the superstar realm, she could legally become a professor. If the students knew about the treatment Chu Yan Gu Ying received, most of them would be envious. However, he didn't expect Chu Yan Gu Ying to come with them openly. Chu Yan Gu Ying smiled. It's very simple. In this bubble space, some of the powerhouses who died were the successors of our music boundary starfield. When I mentioned this matter, Principal Xingyi agreed. Yang Tian shook his head. That old man is here to send you to your death. When you're done for, the academy will save a lot of resources. We won't have to raise a person like you who only knows how to eat and not do anything. Of course, this was Yang Tian joking. A big shot like Principal Xingyi definitely wouldn't have such thoughts. After Yang Tian finished speaking, Chu Yan Gu Ying pursed her lip. Because she was wearing a mask, Yang Tian couldn't see her cute appearance. Speaking of which, Chu Yan Gu Ying was already very old, but with Yang Tian around, she seemed to be getting younger and younger. Yang Tian, do you know why this bubble space attracted so many people when it opened? Soli suddenly asked. From Soli's tone, it was clear that she wasn't asking a question. She was just starting a conversation. Why? Yang Tian asked with a smile. In fact, Yang Tian already had a vague answer in his heart. That day at Principal Xingyi's place, Yang Tian had heard a lot of things from the past. Soli said, actually, what they want isn't High Priest Fei Yun's corpse, but that mysterious young man. Perhaps it's that person's corpse, or perhaps it's some item. Yang Tian was a little confused by Soli's words. He carefully recalled some of the words Principal Xingyi had said in the principal's office. In many people's eyes, that goddess Shi Chen Yu fell in love with that mysterious young man. Later on, for some unknown reason, they separated and this goddess returned to Superstar God Temple. Later on, that mysterious young man appeared again when Shi Chen Yu was fighting against Superstar God Temple. Then, this mysterious young man was besieged by everyone and finally died. And this goddess disappeared from the universe in grief. Of course, Yang Tian already knew that she had been sealed. If the two of them were lovers, the goddess should have taken away the mysterious young man's body and belongings back then. Yang Tian pondered for a moment before voicing his doubts. Soli, however, said, what if the mysterious person wasn't killed but sealed? How could such a powerful person die so easily? This guess was somewhat reasonable, but without knowing the truth, it would always be a guess. However, after knowing the true goal of Superstar God Temple this time, Yang Tian was a little excited. It was very likely that a huge secret was about to be revealed. Squeak, squeak. About 20 minutes after the little blue dragon left, it suddenly returned. It let out an excited cry and told Yang Tian that it had found a human corpse. With the little blue dragon here, things that were difficult for others were very easy for Yang Tian. When Yang Tian and the others were about to set off, dozens of black-armored people suddenly rushed over from the distance. Chapter 379. These people came in a menacing manner, and it was obvious that they were up to no good. Yang Tian took a glance and saw the number of black armored men, a total of 35 people. Kill them! Before the 35 black armored people could get within 50 meters of Yang Tian said coldly. Seeing these people rushing over in a fan shape, it was obvious that they wanted to surround Yang Tian and the rest. Instead of waiting for them to surround him, he might as well kill them first. Before Yang Tian could finish his words, he kicked off a meteor and shot out from it. When fighting in a space without air, one's body would have no air resistance when moving, so their speed would be much faster. When Yang Tian moved, Soli also moved. She took out 2 black whips from her storage bracelet and followed after Yang Tian. The little blue dragon swam around a few times and turned into a 30-meter-long dragon. It waved its claws and coldly looked at the black-armored people in front of it. It was very sensible and didn't immediately rush to fight. Instead, it stayed to protect Chu Yen Guiying. At this time, Chu Yen Guiying said to the little blue dragon, "Xiao Long, go help Yang Tian and the others. They can't hurt me." After Chu Yen Guiying finished speaking, she waved her hand. With her position as the center, countless meteor stones suddenly moved. Chu Yen Guiying's figure flashed and disappeared among the chaotic meteorite. Before she came, she had told Yang Tian that spiritual power had an advantage in fighting in this space. This was because spiritual power could be used at will and the speed at which it could be sent and received was very fast. In this environment without gravity, using spiritual power to move objects consumed very little spiritual power. Although Yang Tian also had spiritual power, he hadn't gone through any systematic learning until now. In terms of using spiritual power, he didn't have as many methods as Chu Yen Guiying, nor did he use them as exquisitely. It was worth mentioning that the meteorites in this space were distributed in a flat surface. If one looked at it from above, they would see countless meteorites forming a spiral shape. This structure was created by the residual power inside the bubble when it was formed. As soon as Chu Yen and Gu Ying released their mental power, the flat meteorites moved and formed a three-dimensional distribution that spread out in all directions. In this way, it formed a form of protection for her. Similarly, Chu Yen Guiying also used this method to create an advantageous battle environment for herself. Roar! The little blue dragon opened its mouth and roared. A strange energy wave was emitted from the little blue dragon's mouth. Even though there was no air in this space, its cry could still be heard. This was the little blue dragon's declaration of war. At the same time, Yang Tian met one of the 35 black-armored men. In the process of rushing forward, Yang Tian had already taken out the red long saber from his storage bracelet. With a flash of red light, Yang Tian brushed past a black-armored man. For this slash, Yang Tian had used the strengthened version of the snow slash. The strange program had controlled Yang Tian to draw runes for 2 days, and Yang Tian had memorized the process and learned a way to control his body. Although he did not understand the theory behind it, Yang Tian was still able to copy it. The group of black-armored men did not expect Yang Tian and the others to act so quickly. They had already rushed over before their people had even arrived. Originally, they thought that Yang Tian and the others would only react after Yang Tian and the others had been surrounded. Among these black-armored men, the weakest was a star warlord. The black-armored man that met Yang Tian saw Yang Tian slashing at his chest when he brushed past him. However, he did not dodge and used the sharp tip in his hand to stab at Yang Tian's abdomen. Yang Tian did not dodge either. Prung, both of them heard the sound of a collision. After brushing past him, Yang Tian chuckled. Using the strange program to control his body, the slashing ability of the blade was indeed powerful. When the blade came into contact with the other party's black armor, Yang Tian felt that the blade met with a slight resistance and immediately cut through. The terrifying cutting ability of this slash broke through the double defense of the opponent's black armor in an instant. One layer was the power generated by the runes on the black armor, and the other layer was, of course, the hard material of the black armor itself. What about the opponent? Although both of them heard a pring sound, it was simulated by the black armor system. The opponent's sharp tip did not break through the rune defense on Yang Tian's black armor. Although it was only for a short moment, both of them had used a powerful force. Yang Tian was fine, but the opponent that brushed past him was completely dead. This slash not only had a powerful cutting ability, but it also had a terrifying destructive force of origin power. There were still 34 people left. After killing one person, Yang Tian's body flew a distance due to inertia. He stepped on a meteorite, changed direction, and swung his blade. It was actually not difficult for Yang Tian to kill these 35 people, because the people who came to this bubble space were limited in their realm. Those who were stronger than Yang Tian could not enter. Those who were weaker than Yang Tian but wanted to kill Yang Tian, then they could only be killed by Yang Tian. Yang Tian had just turned around and swung his blade to release a red crescent-shaped wind blade when Soli arrived. The soft whips in her hands were made of metal chains and could be long or short. When she was still more than 10 meters away from the opponent, she shook the two long whips in her hands. The two whips were like two dragons, rolling toward the two people. Bang! Bang! The two black-armored people attacked by Soli reacted quickly. They used the weapons in their hands to knock away the soft whips and dodge to the side. Then, they stepped on the meteorite and shot toward Soli. At the same time, the other two black-armored people attacked from behind Soli. One of them even took out a portable particle cannon and aimed it at Soli. High-tech weapons could be used when attacking a group of enemies. Moreover, they would often have the effect of killing with one hit. Other than superstar experts, there were no cultivators who could dodge the super particle beams after the particle cannons were fired. Bang! The black-armored person carrying the particle cannon was just about to fire when he heard a boom in his ears, and then he lost consciousness. The little blue dragon immediately rushed over and killed this black-armored person with a claw. After killing one person, the little blue dragon opened its mouth and spat out a stream of dragon flames at the nearest black-armored person. If it were an ordinary flame, its power would be greatly reduced in an environment without air. However, the dragon flames spat out by the little blue dragon were the opposite. Without air to block them, not only were they faster, but they were also hotter. At this moment, Yang Tian swung his blade. The red wind blade that was emitted from his saber suddenly split into three as it flew at high speed towards the three black armors. Yang Tian was getting more and more familiar with this method of using sword aura. Chapter 380. The red wind blade split into three and slashed toward the three black-armored men. Two of them were dodged by the two, and the last one hit one of them. The man was hit by a powerful force, and his body flew back uncontrollably and crashed into a meteor. Although he was hit by Yang Tian's sword chi, he was not injured. He slapped the meteor with his hand, and with the rebound force, he once again charged toward Yang Tian. In less than a minute, Yang Tian had killed one of them, and the little blue dragon had slapped another to death. There were still 33 of them left. At this time, among the 33 people, other than Yang Tian, Soli, and the dozen or so that were attacking the little blue dragon, the rest suddenly spread out and surrounded Yang Tian and the others. As for Chu Yen and Guiying, these people did not pay any attention to them. Their main target was Yang Tian and then Chu Yen and Guiying. One had to know that Chu Yen and Guiying were involved in the absolute beginning star being destroyed by Yang Tian. Boom! The little blue dragon's dragon flames instantly engulfed one of the black-armored men. After being engulfed by the dragon flames for a moment, the man was instantly able to escape. What's so great about these flames? Some of the black-armored men thought when they saw this. That was because the black-armored men that were burned by the dragon flames had their black armor intact. There were no signs of damage at all. But soon, they knew that they could not be burned by the little blue dragon's dragon flames. The black armored man that was burned by the dragon flames for a short period of time suddenly had his black armor spread out. The black armor on his body was being torn apart by the air pressure inside him. Once the black armor was gone, it could be seen that he was a middle-aged man with short hair. Without the protection of the black armor, his skin instantly turned gray. A stellar-level elite would be able to last for a while in such an environment. Once the black armor left his body, he instantly used the power within his body to form a barrier around his body. The dead cells on his body instantly fell off. One of the man's companions saw the situation and immediately rushed over. Before this person could arrive, a thick electric current rushed over and hit this person who had lost his armor. His body exploded into pieces. This was the lightning released by the little blue dragon. Without the interference of the air, the lightning's trajectory was straight, and its speed was even faster. It was as fast as the particle cannon's speed. The black armored man who came to the rescue saw this situation and reacted quickly. He took out a piece of black cloth from his storage bracelet and covered the broken pieces of the corpse. After that, he quickly fled into the distance. It seemed that there were also people who were loyal among these people. This person carried the corpse and rushed out of the encirclement. It seemed like he wanted to leave the battlefield. But at this moment, a thick particle beam shot out and hit the fleeing black-armored man carrying the corpse of his comrade, creating a large hole in his body. Now, there was no need for Yang Tian and the others to make a move. This person was actually killed by his companions. These people were too ruthless. This seemed to be telling Yang Tian and the others that in this encirclement, it was either you die or I die. The black-armored man who killed his comrade had a different black armor than the others. It looked darker and emitted a black and red light. After killing his comrade who was about to escape, this person threw away the particle cannon in his hand and waved at his companions. It seemed that this person was the leader of this group. But strangely, when he waved his hand, no one paid him any attention. Instead, they suddenly scattered. Even the 4 black-armored men who attacked Soli suddenly retreated quickly. What was this situation? While Yang Tian and the others were still confused, the remaining 31 people, except for the leader who killed their comrade, all turned around and fled together. Yang Tian and the others did not chase after those people. It was clear that this group had internal strife and the subordinates did not listen to their leader. Yang Tian, we can't let this person escape. There was only one leader left. Soli raised her soft whip and pointed at this guy who seemed to be in a daze. How interesting! Yang Tian said with a smile, and in a flash, he pounced towards the remaining leader. This leader only reacted when he saw Yang Tian and the others move. He turned around and kicked off one of the meteorites, wanting to escape as well. At this time, this person was about 50 meters away from Yang Tian and Soli. In the battle just now, this person had been on the periphery as if he was a commander. From the aura he emitted, Yang Tian judged that he was probably at the stellar warrior level. This person was the leader. His other realms were not as strong as those who left. If this person took off his helmet now, Yang Tian and the others would know at a glance that this person was Tai Chu Yao. Some of the 30 people who left just now were sent by the Tai Chu Yao clan to investigate this bubble space. Their main mission was not to kill Yang Tian. The other people's main mission was to kill Yang Tian. After these people came in, they were gathered by Tai Chu Yao. He thought that he was a member of the Tai Chu Yao clan and naturally became the leader of this group. It was unknown why Tai Chu Yao hated Yang Tian so much. In the beginning, he was only supposed to be valued by the clan leader and wanted to kill Yang Tian to gain merit. When the little blue dragon advanced, Tai Chu Yao spent a lot of money and all his personal savings, but he did not achieve his goal. After that, he lived a poor life. He had not been valued in the Tai Chu Yao clan to begin with. After his failure, He had been mocked by his peers in the clan several times. Perhaps this was why he hated Yang Tian more and more. People like Yang Tian and the others could not understand the inner thoughts of people who came from large clans and had a sense of superiority since they were young. This time, Tai Chuyao had made up his mind to kill Yang Tian, no matter the price. This was his only chance. If he did not perform well, he would be marginalized by the Tai Chuyao clan. There was also competition between peers in large clans, and it was very intense. This no price was, of course, the lives of his subordinates. Before they had surrounded Yang Tian and the others, Tai Chuyao had already hinted to his subordinates that they had to kill Yang Tian even if they had to fight to the last man. At the time when he had said this, no one had actually responded to him. Tai Chuyao's ability had long been evaluated in the Tai Chuyao clan. He was someone who could not be entrusted with important tasks. Under such circumstances, of course, no one would submit to him. Yang Tian and the others had seen what happened after that. After Tai Chuyao had made up his mind and killed a subordinate who had run away without permission, the remaining people were all furious. How could they be willing to submit to him? At the same time, they had no hope of defeating Yang Tian and the others, so they scattered and fled. In fact, this was the main reason. Chapter 381. Tai Chuyao panicked when he realized that his subordinates had abandoned him. He wanted to run away. He had just turned around and used the reaction force of the meteors to fly 100 meters away when the meteors in front of him suddenly rose up and blocked his path. At the same time, the meteors around him were also coming toward him. Tai Chuyao knew that if Yang Tian caught up to him, he would be dead. In his shock, he immediately took out a small space thruster from his storage bracelet. The shape of this thruster looked like a scooter. Tai Chuyao immediately activated the thruster as soon as he stepped on it. The thruster began to shoot out hot gas. With the help of the thruster, Tai Chuyao's escape speed increased. Cultivators at the Eternal Star Realm had very fast reflexes. With the armor on his body, Tai Chuyao was able to quickly leave Yang Tian and the others in the dust as he passed through the meteors. Once he was out of the meteors, Tai Chuyao let out a sigh of relief. He finally felt relieved. He did not believe that Yang Tian and Soli would be able to surpass him in terms of speed between meteors. Not all cultivators would be able to think of a portable space thruster like this and bring it into the bubble. After the danger was over, Tai Chuyao gritted his teeth. He decided that once he left the bubble, he would find a way to find out who had abandoned him. Those people had left him there and made him face Yang Tian alone. It was a despicable betrayal. He had to make those people pay the price. At the same time, Tai Chuyao couldn't understand what his subordinates were doing. The rules of the Taichu family were very strict. Since they had accepted the order to kill Yang Tian, they had to complete it no matter what the price was. No matter what, when the time came just as Tai Chuyao was planning how to deal with those 30 subordinates, a golden light suddenly appeared in his eyes. Boom! Then, Tai Chuyao heard a loud crash. His body started to roll uncontrollably. He crashed into several meteors before coming to a stop. Tai Chuyao was wearing a very strong armor. This level of impact didn't hurt him at all. When Tai Chuyao stabilized his body and saw what was in front of him, his face behind the mask was filled with shock. The little blue dragon, who had transformed into a giant dragon, was right in front of Tai Chuyao. It was less than 10 meters away from Tai Chuyao. If the little blue dragon moved its whiskers, it might be able to touch Tai Chuyao. The beam of golden light had been emitted when the little azure dragon used its golden dragon horn to strike the alpha beginning glory. No one could fly faster than the little blue dragon in this bubble. Even if they had thrusters. Seeing that the little azure dragon was staring at him with a mocking expression, Tai Chuyao was dumbfounded for a moment. He immediately turned around, patted on a meteorite, and rushed into the messy meteorites. Tai Chuyao's. He knew that if Yang Tian and Soli caught up to him, they definitely wouldn't let him go. Tai Chu Yao had already seen Yang Tian and the little blue dragon's power. He knew that he wasn't a match for Yang Tian, let alone the terrifying astral beast behind him. The little blue dragon looked at Tai Chu Yao's escape with a playful expression. It didn't give chase. Tai Chu Yao quickly passed through the meteorites, crashing into them from time to time. Looking at his current appearance, he seemed to be in a panic. Under these circumstances, Tai Chu Yao could only rely on these meteorites to shake off Yang Tian and the others. But soon, Tai Chu Yao realized that something was wrong, because the meteorites around him became denser and denser as he passed through them. Behind the mask, Tai Chu Yao's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. However, leaving the meteorites at this time was courting death. Tai Chu Yao could only grit his teeth and persevere. A few minutes later, Tai Chu Yao realized in despair that he was trapped by countless meteorites. The meteorites were of different sizes and shape. Under normal circumstances, even if they were next to each other, there should be gaps for people to pass through. However, the current situation was a little strange. Or rather, someone was deliberately using the meteorites to trap him. It was obvious that the meteorites around him had been deliberately placed there. The large meteorites were next to each other, and the gaps between them were filled with smaller meteorites. No one could pass through. The person who had placed the meteorites was Chu Yan and Gu Ying. While Yang Tian and the others were fighting with Tai Chu Yao and the others, Chu Yan and Gu Ying saw that no one was paying attention to them. They passed through the meteorites and quietly approached. She thought that although she couldn't fight with those people directly, she could use the meteorites to help Yang Tian and the others indirectly. In this kind of environment, controlling the meteorites wouldn't consume much mind power. Chu Yan and Gu Ying hadn't even made a move yet, but the people who were attacking Yang Tian and the others had already started to fight among themselves and run away. Tai Chu Yao, who was trapped by the meteorites, gritted his teeth in despair and punched at one of the meteorites. There were no complete planets in the bubble-shattered space, so there were no planets or galaxies. The meteorites didn't fly at high speed like they did outside the bubble-shattered space, so they didn't have much kinetic energy. They were as light as plastic bubbles. Following a series of rumbling noises, the surrounding meteorites were shattered by the great beginning glory. As the meteorites scattered, Tai Chu Yao attached himself to a large meteorite. When the meteorite was scattered enough, he kicked off the meteorite and shot out. Whoosh! At this time, Tai Chu Yao heard an ear-piercing sound of wind. This sound was simulated by the armor system. In fact, this method of simulation was even faster than the time when humans heard sounds in a space with air. Because the system's calculation speed was fast, there was a time limit. Tai Chu Yao reacted quickly. He slapped at one of the meteorites and quickly dodged. At this time, a black metal chain brushed past his body and hit one of the meteorites, shattering it into pieces. At this time, Tai Chu Yao was so desperate that he forgot his fear. When he dodged Soli's soft whip, he suddenly felt that his body was bound by a force. Alarmed, Tai Chu Yao immediately used his hands to break free. Just as he was about to escape, a black shadow flashed in front of him and a smiling face appeared in front of him. At this time, Yang Tian had already taken off his helmet. Although Tai Chu Yao was covered in black armor, Yang Tian had already guessed that it was Tai Chu Yao. As soon as he saw Yang Tian's smiling face, Tai Chu Yao heard the sound of something being pierced. Then, he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. Chapter 382. Tai Chu Yao knew that he had been stabbed. Intense pain appeared, followed by numbness all over his body. He couldn't even move. He knew that Yang Tian possessed a terrifying energy called origin power. Tai Chu Yao didn't need to guess to know that his body had been corroded by Yang Tian's origin power. He was about to die. Tai Chu Yao was very unwilling, but he couldn't even move. He couldn't even put up a fight before his death. Rip, Yang Tian pulled out the blade from Taichu Yao's abdomen. Taichu Yao's armor hadn't been completely destroyed. It still had the ability to mimic sound, so Taichu Yao heard an ear-piercing scraping sound. This was the sound of Yang Tian's blade rubbing against the armor. When Yang Tian pulled out the blade, Taichu Yao was surprised to find that his body had regained some sensation. Yang Tian hadn't injected much origin power into Taichu Yao's body. That was why Taichu Yao's body had regained consciousness. Yang Tian was becoming more and more proficient in controlling origin power. He had tried using Taichu Yao's body just now and found that he only needed to use a small amount of origin power. The body of someone who had been corroded by origin power wouldn't be destroyed immediately. Of course, this also depended on the person. For a cultivator at Taichu Yao's level, the amount of origin power he injected would be enough to destroy the body of a planet-grade cultivator. If it was a cultivator at a higher level than Taichu Yao, he would need to use even more origin power. After pulling out the blade, Yang Tian said, "Taichu Yao, do you have anything to say before you die?" Although they were in a vacuum, Yang Tian's words still reached Taichu Yao's ears. This was because Yang Tian had used his own spiritual power to envelop himself and Taichu Yao. Through this, he could transmit his voice. "No. I don't want to die. Don't kill me." Taichu Yao's body had regained some sensation, and he had a glimmer of hope for survival. When he heard Yang Tian's words, he immediately spoke. "I can spare your life," Yang Tian said indifferently, "but you have to tell me some things about your Taichu family." This was also the reason why Yang Tian did not immediately kill Taichu Yao. Yang Tian knew he had provoked the Great Beginning family. As long as the Great Beginning family was not destroyed, this family would cause trouble for him. In the Taichu clan, Yang Tian wasn't afraid of people like Taichu Shixing. At least they were honest and had agreed to have a fair battle with Yang Tian. However, there were too few people like that. In order to guard against the Taichu clan, one had to know everything about them. At the moment, Yang Tian hadn't thought about destroying the Taichu family yet. After all, this wasn't a realistic idea for the current Yang Tian. If he became a powerhouse like the immeasurable Star-Lord, he could consider it. However, if that were to happen, the Taichu clan would have already fled far away. How would they dare to cause trouble for Yang Tian? Hearing Yang Tian say this, Taichu Yao hurriedly said, "All right. If you don't kill me, I'll tell you everything. How many people are there in your Taichu family? Who's the patriarch?" Yang Tian asked with a smile. Taichu Yao immediately answered without even thinking, "Our patriarch is Taichu Bohong. There are hundreds of thousands of people in our Taichu family." "What are the coordinates of your family fortress?" Yang Tian asked again. Taichu Yao shook his head. "I don't know. This information is confidential. Every once in a while, the family fortress will move." They were really careful. It wasn't without reason that such a family could exist for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. Following that, Yang Tian asked a lot more about the Taichu family. As long as Taichu Yao knew something, he would answer almost everything. However, Yang Tian didn't get any important information from him. This was because Taichu Yao was an unimportant character in the Taichu family. This was also determined by his ability. Of course, if Taichu Yao had the ability, he wouldn't have fallen to his current state. Although he only knew some superficial information, the Taichu family still shocked Yang Tian greatly. Such a family controlled the resources of dozens of habitable planets and also participated in some profitable business group. In private, they even raised thousands of cultivators. The most powerful cultivators among them had already reached the peak of the superstar realm. What surprised Yang Tian was that the Taichu family's fortress had a small planet. Most of the people living on it didn't know what was happening outside the universe. After asking, Yang Tian put on his helmet, stepped on a meteorite, and left quickly. At this moment Yang Tian sighed. If there were no cultivators in this universe, a rich and powerful family like the Taichu family could establish an interstellar empire. Seeing Yang Tian leave, Taichu Yao couldn't help but sigh in relief. Yang Tian was still a man of his word. It was very disadvantageous to talk to a man who didn't care about his word. For example, Taichu Yao was a man who would do anything for his own benefit. As soon as Yang Tian left, he was already thinking about how to torture Yang Tian when he caught Yang Tian one day to take revenge for today's humiliation. As soon as he had this thought, he heard a chi sound. Then, Taichu Yao felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. He looked up and saw Soli standing on a meteorite not far away with a soft whip in her hand. The whip extended from Soli's hand and connected to his abdomen. Although he couldn't see Soli's face, Taichu Yao could guess that at this moment, Soli had a cold expression. You, Pung! As soon as Taichu Yao said the word, you, he heard an explosion and felt his body suddenly being torn apart. During this process, Taichu Yao's consciousness instinctively moved to a part of his body. But it was useless. Under the intense radiation of the universe, Taichu Yao's cells quickly died. Even though an Eternal Star Realm elite was already a very high-level lifeform and could reform their body after it was destroyed, this environment wasn't the place to do so. Taichu Yao's consciousness was completely destroyed along with the death of his cells. He could no longer appear in this world. After killing Taichu Yao, Soli shook the whip and shook off the flesh on it. Yang Tian promised not to kill you, but I didn't, Soli said coldly as she looked at Taichu Yao's torn body. With that, she immediately turned and left. The 3 people and 1 dragon quickly gathered together. The little blue dragon transformed back into mini dragon form and lay on Yang Tian's helmet. Earlier, the little blue dragon went out and found an ancient corpse. Just as it was about to go look for it, Taichu Yao came with his men. At this time, it was finally quiet. Yang Tian also understood that this was only a temporary peace. Later on, if they were to find anything in this space, a fight would definitely break out. Chapter 383. Under the little blue dragon's guidance, the 3 of them quickly found a very old corpse. It was a dried corpse wearing tattered dark red armor. The exposed head and hands looked like a skull and the claws of an exotic beast. The corpse no longer had any signs of life, but there was still a trace of energy in it. If they were dozens of meters away, Yang Tian wouldn't have been able to sense this energy fluctuation. Now that they were so close to each other, Yang Tian could clearly feel it. In addition to the dark red armor on the corpse's body, there was also a black storage bracelet on its left wrist. Storage bracelets were usually bound to their owners. After their owners died, no one could use them again unless the bracelet's owner unbound it before he died. Therefore, in battles between cultivators, even if they killed their opponents, they wouldn't take the storage bracelet off the corpse. After the 3 of them looked at the corpse, Yang Tian was about to put it into his storage bracelet. This corpse wasn't the Flying Cloud Great Priest's corpse because it didn't have any symbol of the temple. However, such a corpse could be exchanged for 100,000 academic credit. Even if they couldn't find the Flying Cloud Great Priest's corpse, 10 of these corpses would be enough to offset the 100,000 academic credits they owed. When Yang Tian was about to put it away, he suddenly froze. That was because the strange program in his brain spoke. The strange program told Yang Tian to turn the corpse over because it wanted to read some of the runes on the armor and complete the runes. What's wrong? Although they were all wearing helmets and couldn't see Yang Tian's expression, seeing Yang Tian raise his hand and then put it down, Yang Tian seemed to have discovered something. Soli asked curiously. Yang Tian didn't want to tell others about the program in his brain, so he explained, I'm more interested in the runes on the armor. I want to take a look. Saying that, Yang Tian used his spiritual power to control the corpse to float above the 3 of them. The runes behind the dark red armor appeared in the eyes of Yang Tian and the others. Not to mention the two women, even Yang Tian himself could not understand these runes. It's done, the strange program suddenly said. As soon as it finished reminding Yang Tian, it added, "You can keep the storage bracelet on the corpse. When I collect enough runes, I can open it." As soon as the voice of the strange program disappeared from his mind, Yang Tian almost cried out in surprise. Yang Tian thought in surprise. If the strange program could help him decode these storage bracelets, wouldn't he be rich if he killed some rich cultivators in the future and obtained their storage bracelets? One must know that cultivators usually kept all of their precious possessions in their storage bracelet. In the universe, the purchasing power of stellar crystals was getting stronger and stronger. It was said that after cultivators died, they couldn't take out the stellar crystals in their storage bracelet. It was equivalent to wasting them for nothing. After every large-scale war, especially after a battle between powerful cultivators in the universe, the value of stellar crystals would increase a little. It was for this reason. Although there was the Universe Bank, most cultivators who owned storage bracelets would keep most of their stellar crystals in their storage bracelet. Storage bracelets were actually made using rune technology. They were made by a mysterious business organization. It was said that there was only one such organization in the entire universe. The price was very high, and it wasn't something that ordinary people could afford. If he could decode these bracelets, Yang Tian immediately thought of an idea. That was to buy a large number of these storage bracelets left behind by their owners after their death. After the strange program decodes them, he could take out the wealth inside and sell the bracelets at a high price. This was a business without any cost. Just as Yang Tian thought of this, the strange program's voice sounded again. "If I can complete the runes, I can help you do this. Therefore, you have to collect as much runes as you can in the future." Under the strange gazes of Soli and Chu Yengu, Yang Tian took off the storage bracelet from the corpse and put it into a small storage compartment in the stomach of the armor. "There are also many fine runes on the storage bracelet. I have to take it back and study it." After Yang Tian finished speaking, he immediately added, "In the future, if you find such a storage bracelet without an owner, you can help me keep it." "Okay." Soli nodded in agreement. "No problem." Chu Yengu also agreed without hesitation. Studying runes became the perfect excuse for Yang Tian. Seeing that the two girls agreed, Yang Tian originally wanted to ask them to help him buy storage bracelets without an owner in the future. However, after thinking about it, he decided against it. If he said too much, it would arouse their suspicion. Although the storage bracelet was worn on the wrist and covered by the armor, it didn't affect the opening of the storage space. After Yang Tian put away the corpse, the little blue dragon became busy again. In this space, the little blue dragon could move at will at an extremely fast speed. In the same amount of time, it could reach places further than Yang Tian's group, and its search range was also much larger than others. Yang Tian and the two girls stayed in place and waited. More and more cultivators came to this bubble space. About half an hour later, Yang Tian's group saw two cultivators pass by not far from them. Yang Tian's group saw these two, and the two naturally noticed Yang Tian's group as well. The two turned their heads and glanced at Yang Tian's group before continuing on their way. Apart from these two cultivators, Yang Tian also sensed that more cultivators came to this bubble space through energy fluctuations. After a few more minutes, the little blue dragon returned. It told Yang Tian that it had found another corpse. Under the little blue dragon's guidance, the three of them quickly moved forward. More than 10 minutes later, the little blue dragon stopped. The second corpse that the little blue dragon found was stuck close to a crater in a meteor. It wasn't wearing any armor or clothes. It could be guessed at a glance that it died after being destroyed and reformed. This corpse was also a dried corpse. Before it died, its hands and feet were straight, and its fingers were pierced into the meteor. Its head was tilted, and its mouth was wide open. It seemed to be in great pain. There was nothing on this corpse, which disappointed Yang Tian very much. Soli, it's yours. Yang Tian looked at the corpse, then turned his head and said to Soli. Since the two of them were together, they were in a training team, and the loot should be divided equally. Soli nodded without hesitation and wrapped the corpse with a soft whip, putting it into her storage bracelet. Chapter 384. There are already a lot of people here. We can't stay in one place and wait for the little blue dragon. Let's start searching. Yang Tian suggested after Soli put away the corpse and the little blue dragon left again. If we leave, will Xiao Long not be able to find us? Chu Yen Guang asked worriedly. Yang Tian smiled. Xiao Long can even find a corpse with extremely weak energy waves. Do you think it won't be able to find us? Chu Yen Guang thought for a moment and nodded. Next, the three of them randomly chose a direction and moved forward. Although the cultivators who entered this bubble space were only at the Eternal Star Realm, the bubble space started to fluctuate when there were more people. It was very obvious that the spiral and flat structure of the meteorites had started to change. The meteorites were originally still, but now they started to slowly disperse and spread throughout the space. Once the meteorites spread out and covered the entire space, it would also increase the difficulty of searching. Of course, it would also affect the speed of the cultivators. This wasn't a big deal. The worst thing was that the bubble space would lose its stability and suddenly shatter. That would be the worst thing. If the space showed signs of instability, they would have to leave immediately. Before entering this bubble space, the Academy didn't say when they would leave. They were probably waiting for the final moment. As the three of them moved forward, Yang Tian frowned when he saw the slow-moving meteorites around them. Fortunately, the armor had a route recording function. It would record the route Yang Tian and the others took. When Yang Tian and the others needed it, it could immediately calculate the nearest route and guide Yang Tian and the others in the direction to leave. After walking for about 10 minutes, Chu Yen Guang suddenly stopped and shouted, "Yang Tian, there's a corpse over there." Chu Yen Guang's voice was filled with pleasant surprise. After saying that, Chu Yen Guang flew to the left. She could use her mental power to propel herself forward, and the process was filled with beauty. Yang Tian and Soli were stunned for a moment before they quickly followed. Under Chu Yen and Gu Ying's guidance, the three of them stopped after 2 minutes. It really is a corpse. And it's so well preserved. Chu Yen Guang cried out in surprise when she saw the corpse. However, Yang Tian and Soli frowned. It was a female corpse. She wasn't wearing any armor, only a gray dress. There were also exquisite patterns on the gray dress. The woman's gray dress wasn't originally this color, but it had turned gray due to the passage of time. The reason why Yang Tian and Soli's expressions turned grave was because this corpse was still alive. It had long sapphire blue hair and a beautiful face that still had traces of blood. Her eyes were slightly closed, and her long eyelashes were curled. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and she looked like she was sleeping and having a beautiful dream. In such an environment, even the cultivators who had just entered the bubble would not be able to maintain their freshness after death. The three of them quietly hovered 3 meters away from the female corpse, not saying a word. Chu Yen Guang also realized that something was wrong. She wasn't a student of the Superstar Academy, so she couldn't earn credits. Moreover, her realm was far inferior to Yang Tian and Soli's. Chu Yen Guang felt that she was a burden when she came to this bubble with Yang Tian and Soli. She naturally wanted to help Yang Tian and Soli instead of being a burden. Therefore, she was very excited when she found this corpse. At this time, Chu Yen Guang had completely calmed down. Although the female corpse looked alive, there was no sign of life on her body. After her death, in the harsh environment of the bubble space, she maintained her appearance at the time of her death. The three of them were silent for a moment. Yang Tian took out a red saber from his storage bracelet. To be honest, Yang Tian didn't want to touch this corpse either. However, she was wearing a sapphire blue storage bracelet on her left wrist. The bracelet had beautiful patterns on it, so it was obvious that it wasn't an ordinary item. After taking out the saber, Yang Tian held it and slowly extended it to the female corpse's left wrist. Yang Tian wanted to take off the storage bracelet on her wrist. When the tip of the saber touched the female corpse, she moved. Of course, this movement was normal. In this space without gravity, everything was weightless. Once the female corpse moved, what happened next made Yang Tian feel embarrassed. This was because the gray dress on her body was torn into small pieces of cloth. They separated from the female corpse's body and spread to the surroundings. In a moment, the entire female corpse was covered by the gray rags. Whoosh! At this time, Chu Yengyang took off her helmet, pouted, and blew at the female corpse. Chu Yengyang's body quickly retreated a few meters. She had to use her mental power to stabilize herself. Under the effect of the airflow, the rags finally scattered. A naked female corpse with smooth skin appeared in front of the three of them. Yang Tian's face and ears turned red. He felt embarrassed. Of course, if it were not for the two women by his side, he would not feel embarrassed at all. With that, Yang Tian turned around. At this time, Chu Yengyang also put on her helmet. With her strong mental power, she could survive in this space for a short period of time. Taking off her helmet was a bold attempt by Chu Yengyang. After turning around, Yang Tian's mind was filled with the woman's body. This was a normal reaction for a man. Most importantly, this female corpse did not look like a corpse at all. It looked more like a sleeping naked woman. This. Solely you can keep this corpse. Just take off the storage bracelet on her wrist. After forcibly clearing the image in his mind, Yang Tian said awkwardly. Okay. Solely replied. She lifted her whip, wrapped it around the female corpse, and pulled it over. Wait. When Solely wrapped the female corpse with her whip and was about to take off the storage bracelet on the corpse's left wrist, Chu Yengyang suddenly shouted. Solely immediately pulled her hand back. Solely had always been vigilant toward this strange female corpse. What's wrong? Solely immediately asked after pulling her hand back. Chu Yengyang said, Just now, I sensed another strange energy fluctuation in this corpse. I don't know if you guys sensed it. No. Solely shook her head. Yang Tian also turned around and shook his head at Chu Yengyang. At this time, Yang Tian understood that the energy in this female corpse was very special. Only those who had cultivated their mental power to a certain level could feel it. Chapter 385. When he hadn't touched the corpse, there hadn't been any abnormal energy fluctuations. When Solely wanted to take the bracelet, such a situation occurred. If it weren't for the fact that this corpse could be exchanged for 100,000 academic credits, Yang Tian would have destroyed it with his origin power, even though this female corpse looked very beautiful. Sometimes, the more beautiful something was, the more dangerous it was. Let me do it, Yang Tian said after some thought. Yang Tian had origin power and was the strongest among the three. Solely naturally agreed and nodded, saying, Be careful. Yang Tian slowly approached the female corpse, reached out and grabbed her wrist. The moment he touched the female corpse, a strange energy was transmitted to Yang Tian's hand. This energy was as strange as origin power. As soon as it entered Yang Tian's body, it wanted to spread, but it was stopped by the origin power in Yang Tian's body. The two types of energy began to fight in Yang Tian's arm. The two types of energy fighting in his arm wasn't a pleasant thing. Yang Tian painfully took a deep breath. What's wrong? Chu Yengyang asked anxiously after seeing Yang Tian's abnormality. No, nothing. Yang Tian gritted his teeth. The energy that invaded his arm was very strange. It also had powerful destructive power and rapid transmission ability, somewhat similar to origin power. During the process of the two types of energy fighting, Yang Tian felt as if his entire right hand and arm were being pricked by countless needles. Fortunately, it was Yang Tian. If it were anyone else, it would have been dangerous. This kind of external energy wasn't much, and it was in Yang Tian's body, so origin power could be continuously produced. After a few minutes, this external energy was completely consumed. Although it was only a few minutes, it caused great damage to Yang Tian's hand. After eliminating this external energy, Yang Tian's hand became withered. This could be seen from the shape of the vambrace on his arm. After this energy was eliminated, the injured arms and palms became numb and itchy, and began to rapidly recover. At this time, the female corpse also began to change. A large amount of milky white liquid began to seep out from the surface of her body. After this liquid seeped out of her body, the female corpse quickly dried up, and the milky white liquid also evaporated quickly. In just a few minutes, the beautiful female corpse had turned into a shriveled corpse that was all skin and bones. The contrast between the female corpse's transformation and before made Yang Tian feel like vomiting. At this time, Soli and Chu Yen Guang both had uncomfortable expressions. Of course, they thought from the same point of view. This made them think that, after they died, they would also become like this. Women love to be beautiful, and no woman would want to grow old, or even become like this after death. After the corpse stopped changing, Yang Tian quickly took off the storage bracelet from the corpse's wrist and put it into the small storage compartment of the armor. 3 corpses in exchange for 2 storage bracelet. To Yang Tian, it was more valuable than 300,000 credit. Look, there's something in her mouth. Just as Soli was about to put the corpse into her storage bracelet, Chu Yen Guang cried out in alarm. Because this corpse was discovered by herself, Chu Yen Guang observed it very carefully. The withered corpse's mouth was wide open. Because it seemed to make Yang Tian feel uncomfortable, Yang Tian didn't observe it carefully. In fact, Soli wasn't as meticulous as Chu Yen Guang. With Chu Yen Guang's reminder, Yang Tian and Soli noticed that there was a black, spherical thing in the corpse's mouth. This thing didn't look big, at most a little bigger than a thumb. Otherwise, Yang Tian and the others would have discovered it before the corpse changed. Soli flicked her whip and hit the corpse's cheek, forcing the black bead out of the mouth. Then, Chu Yen Guang used her spiritual power to control this bead to fly in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian raised his hand and grabbed the bead. Although this bead looked black, it was actually translucent. There was something like a ball of paper inside. It turned out that this was just a container. This female corpse had a storage bracelet when she was alive, so why did she put this thing in her mouth? With this question in mind, Yang Tian squeezed the bead lightly and crushed it. Sure enough, it was a ball of paper that was casually crumpled into a ball. Yang Tian carefully opened it. It was the size of a palm and was square in shape. There were many runes on it, but the 3 of them couldn't recognize a single word. With just a glance, the words on it disappeared, and the paper on which the runes were recorded turned into powder. There must be something strange. Unfortunately, they couldn't recognize these runes. What was strange was that with their powerful memory, they could remember ordinary words with just a glance. However, there were only a few dozen runes, but when they recalled them, they were very blurry. She should have been a spiritual power cultivator who studied runes when she was alive, Chu Yen Guang guessed. Chu Yen Guang guessed. So, these runes also contain a kind of spiritual power that can affect our nervous system. This explanation was very reasonable. Yang Tian and Soli both nodded. You remember it, right? Yang Tian asked the strange program in his mind. The program answered, I don't have a nervous system like you humans, so I remember it. What do these runes mean? Yang Tian asked curiously. The program answered, because there isn't enough rune information to support it, I don't know. The program's answer disappointed Yang Tian. Sensing Yang Tian's disappointment, the program comforted him. Don't worry, I've already remembered it. When I have enough rune information to decipher it, I'll tell you immediately. All right, Yang Tian said in his mind. Soli finally put the withered female corpse into her storage bracelet. It was a long story, but it had only been less than 10 minutes since Yang Tian and the others found the corpse. The three of them continued forward. The bubble space changed very quickly. At this time, the entire space was filled with meteorites. They couldn't see the situation in the distance. After walking for about 5 minutes, the little blue dragon's cry suddenly rang out. The little blue dragon had been gone for more than half an hour. Yang Tian was a bit worried. Fortunately, it was finally back. A green shadow flashed, and the little blue dragon landed on Yang Tian's helmet. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon came back and cried out excitedly. It told Yang Tian that there was a place with a lot of corpses in the distance. Chapter 386. A place with a lot of corpses. Let's go. Yang Tian shouted excitedly when he heard that. He only had 100,000 credits now, and he still had to find 9 more corpses to offset the 1 million credits he owed. At the end of the year, Yang Tian still had to strive to become a divine general of the Superstar Divinity Temple. He couldn't lose this opportunity for the sake of these credits he owed. Only when he became a divine general would he be able to see Qin Fei. As for how to take this noble and beautiful wife of his away from the temple, that was something he would consider later. Gigi. The little blue dragon also cried out excitedly and immediately led the way. The little blue dragon's cry also carried a great sense of accomplishment. It left for more than half an hour and flew a little far before finally finding a large number of corpses. The meteorites in the entire space had become messy, and the little blue dragon couldn't transform into a giant dragon to fly with Yang Tian and the others. Therefore, Yang Tian and the others moved a lot slower. It took them about an hour and a half to arrive at the place the little blue dragon had previously discovered under the guidance of the little blue dragon. As soon as they arrived, Yang Tian felt a strong spatial energy fluctuation, and a distorted plane appeared in front of them. This plane looked like ripples on the surface of water. They had already arrived at the edge of the bubble space, and this constantly fluctuating plane was equivalent to the outer shell of the bubble space. At the edge, meteorites were even denser, and there were also countless spaceship fragments. And among these meteorites and spaceship fragments, there were many dried corpses. With just a glance, Yang Tian saw no less than 10 corpses and couldn't help but cry out in surprise, "We're rich!" Soli was also excited and said, "The bubble space is already extremely unstable, let's move quickly. After collecting these corpses, we'll immediately leave." Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying nodded at the same time. Soli was right. They should be satisfied with these corpses. Leaving was more important, and their lives were more important. As for the flying cloud great priest's corpse, finding it depended on luck. As for the corpse of the mysterious young man, or the items he left behind, it would take heaven-defying luck to find them. Yang Tian had never thought that his luck would be the best. One must know how to be satisfied. The three of them immediately began to collect the corpses. Soli was the fastest. While collecting these dried corpses, she shook the soft whip in her hand and pulled the corpses in the distance over to her storage bracelet. The space between a storage tool and another storage tool could not be duplicated. If the collection failed, it meant that the corpse had a storage tool on it. Once this happened, they would have to find the storage bracelet or other storage tools on the corpse in order to successfully store the corpse in the storage bracelet. Almost all of the corpses were carrying storage tools. In less than half an hour, Soli had collected more than 10 corpses and obtained 7 storage bracelets and 1 storage ring. These things almost filled up the small storage compartment of her armor. Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying's speed was slightly slower. However, with the two of them, the total number of corpses they obtained was slightly more than Soli. Chu Yen Guiying was not a student, so she naturally could not obtain credit. It was obvious that she was helping Yang Tian. While the three of them were busy, the little blue dragon became several meters long and flew into the distance. It pulled the corpses in front of Yang Tian for Yang Tian to collect. During this process, the strange program in Yang Tian's brain also gained a lot. It read a lot of runes from the armor of the corpses. These armors were very old, and many of them were custom-made. The runes on each of the armors were different. After more than an hour, the three of them had collected over 100 corpses. They did a final count. Soli obtained 32 corpses, while Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying obtained 65 corpses. During this process, nothing strange happened like the discovery of the female corpse. If each corpse could obtain 100,000 credits, Soli would have obtained 3,400,000 credits on this trip. Yang Tian would have obtained 6,600,000 credit. The three of them obtained a total of 63 storage bracelets and other storage tools, such as storage rings and storage belts. These 63 storage tools filled up the small storage compartments of the three people's armors. After deciphering all these storage bracelets, the storage bracelets and the things stored inside would definitely be a huge fortune. It must be known that these corpses were all powerhouses when they were alive. Since they were powerhouses, the amount of wealth they possessed would definitely be astonishing. Yang Tian believed that deciphering these storage bracelets was only a matter of time. As long as he kept adventuring and walking in the universe, he would definitely find enough runes. When he thought of deciphering these storage bracelets, Yang Tian couldn't help but be extremely excited. The smile on his face didn't fade away. Fortunately, he was wearing a fully enclosed helmet. Otherwise, Soli and Chu Yen Guiying would definitely have noticed something. After collecting the corpses, Yang Tian immediately had the armor's AI system calculate the route back. He planned to leave this bubble-shattered space immediately. At the edge of this bubble-shattered space, Yang Tian and the others could clearly feel the stability of this space. More than an hour ago, the energy fluctuations of the surface of the bubble-shattered space had already been very strong. It looked like the surface of a water with waves. Originally, it should have been like a mirror, very calm. But now, this surface had become a stormy sea. It gave people the feeling that it would not be able to hold on at any time. Before this trip, Yang Tian had done a lot of preparation work and learned a lot about the bubble-shattered space. This situation made the three of them nervous. The three of them had their armor's AI system calculate the route back. "Let's go," Yang Tian said as soon as the route was out. They moved in the direction of the armor's AI system. "Yang Tian, wait!" Yang Tian had just moved when Soli's voice suddenly rang in Yang Tian's ears. Yang Tian immediately stopped and turned around. He was a little puzzled and asked, "What's wrong?" Soli said, "Isn't your direction wrong? You should be going that way." After saying that, Soli raised her hand and pointed. The direction she was pointing happened to be at a 90-degree angle with the direction Yang Tian was heading. "I think we've already lost our way here," Chu Yen Guiying said. Her voice was filled with worry. "Is the route your armor's AI system calculated different from ours?" Yang Tian turned around and asked Chu Yen Guiying. Chu Yen Guiying turned around and pointed at the surface of the bubble-shattered space. She smiled bitterly and said, "My armor's AI system is actually pointing in this direction." It seemed that they were really lost. The armor's AI system's route function had completely failed. If two people were together and this situation occurred, they would think that one of them had a problem with their armor. However, the probability of three people having a problem with their armor at the same time was too low. What should they do? If they didn't leave this place immediately, they would all be finished when the bubble-shattered space broke. Even a superstar realm cultivator would be in danger if they encountered something like this, let alone star realm cultivators like them. Yang Tian and the others weren't the only ones who encountered this situation. The other cultivators who had entered the bubble-shattered space were also in the same situation. Yang Tian and the others were still fine. The three of them were together, so they knew that the armor's AI system had led to a problem. For those cultivators who moved alone, when they discovered that the bubble-shattered space was unstable, they would head in the wrong direction. Only when they reached the surface of the bubble-shattered space would they realize that they had lost their way. This situation seemed very strange, but it was actually caused by a change in the spatial energy. The armor's AI system recorded the coordinates of the path forward, and these coordinates were the space. When the spatial energy changed, these coordinates would naturally become chaotic. Faced with this situation, Yang Tian forcibly suppressed the panic in his heart and began to think quickly. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he recalled the training he had with Soli last time. A teleportation formation disk that could be used. "I have an idea," Yang Tian said, and immediately took out the teleportation formation disk from his storage bracelet. After the teleportation formation disk was taken out, it didn't operate, nor did it emit blue light. It was in a stagnant state. It actually couldn't be activated. Was there some kind of switch on it? Yang Tian circled the teleportation formation disk in front of him and searched for it. Soli shook her head and said, "The bubble-shattered space is a bit special, so teleportation formation disks can't be used. Otherwise, that Tai Chu Yao I killed would have taken out the disk and fled long ago." When Soli said this, Yang Tian remembered that there were records of this in the information he had read before. She was still panicking. Yang Tian shook his head helplessly and could only put away the formation disk. Now, he could only think of another way to find a way out. "Xiaolong, can you find a way out?" Yang Tian asked the little blue dragon lying on top of his head. "Squeak, squeak," the little blue dragon cried a few times, telling Yang Tian that the spatial energy fluctuations were too strong and it couldn't do anything. The little blue dragon couldn't find the exit either, and the shadow of death immediately shrouded the three people and one dragon. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as the three of them didn't know what to do, a buzzing sound suddenly rang out. It sounded like a sound, but in reality, it was a kind of energy fluctuation. This kind of energy fluctuation acted on one's mind, giving one the illusion of hearing a sound. "Let's go. Let's go and take a look," Yang Tian, who didn't know what to do, said with a frown. Chapter 387. Now, this was the only thing they could do. In their desperation, this was akin to turning to any doctor in a desperate situation. Although it wasn't sound, this energy fluctuation that could cause one's hearing was too strong. As soon as it was transmitted, the bubble space became even more unstable. After Yang Tian finished speaking, he immediately headed towards the direction of the energy fluctuation and quickly ran. Buzz, 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 the sound kept ringing in their minds. As Yang Tian's group approached, the sound became more and more intense. Because of his anxiety, Yang Tian moved very quickly. Every time he kicked off a meteor, he used all his strength. As for the meteors blocking his way, he dodged the big ones and knocked the small ones away. Soli, Chuyen, and Gu Ying followed closely behind Yang Tian. With Yang Tian leading the way, the two girls felt very relaxed. The meteors in front of them were all knocked away by Yang Tian. There were very few meteors blocking their way. As they kept moving forward, the three of them became more and more anxious. Because at this time, the three of them had a premonition that this bubble space was about to burst. At that time, they didn't know what would happen. 10 minutes. Half an hour. 1 hour. What made Yang Tian and the others anxious was that the path ahead seemed endless. The target of the energy fluctuation still hadn't appeared. More than an hour had passed. Although they didn't know if there was a chance of survival after reaching that place, the three of them were full of hope. It was as if a ship that had lost its way in the middle of the ocean suddenly saw a lighthouse when a storm was approaching. 2 hours had passed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The energy fluctuation ahead was even stronger. At this time, Yang Tian's group couldn't hear the sound of armor colliding with meteors. As Yang Tian's group rushed in the direction of the energy fluctuation, the other cultivators in this bubble space were the same as Yang Tian's group. Although the dense meteors had blocked their vision, Yang Tian's group could still see the meteors disturbed by the cultivators rushing forward. At this time, Yang Tian's group wasn't the only one who was anxious. Buzz, suddenly, the fluctuating energy let out a final sound before disappearing. After the strong energy disappeared, all the meteorites in the space trembled. Yang Tian also felt his body fluctuate uncontrollably. The bubble space had finally shattered. F***Yug, a strong sense of danger suddenly appeared in Yang Tian's mind. After realizing that the bubble space had shattered, Yang Tian couldn't help but curse loudly. Xiao Long! Yang Tian suddenly roared. Creak, creak, the little blue dragon shouted twice and jumped down from Yang Tian's head. Xiao Long, run! Don't worry about us, Yang Tian said. With the little blue dragon's speed, it should be able to reach the front before the bubble space was completely destroyed. Yang Tian's intuition told him that the place where the energy fluctuations came from must be a safe place. If they reached there, they would be fine. Yang Tian's group couldn't reach there in time, but the little blue dragon should be able to. The bubble space was circular. At this moment, the fluctuating surface at the edge of the bubble space had disappeared. The annihilation of the spatial energy started from the edge and quickly spread towards the center. And the center was where the energy fluctuations came from. Yang Tian's words stunned the little blue dragon. Yang Tian actually wanted it to leave alone. Seeing that the little blue dragon was unmoved, Yang Tian quickly said, Xiao Long, you still have to go home. You can't die with us. Run. At this moment, Yang Tian was already prepared to die. At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. There were still many things waiting for him to do. The little blue dragon didn't listen to Yang Tian's words and leave immediately. Instead, it let its body grow rapidly and transformed into a giant dragon. Seeing the little blue dragon's transformation and the firm look in its eyes, Yang Tian knew what it was going to do. At this moment, the annihilation of the space was less than 10 kilometers away from Yang Tian's group. It was moving towards Yang Tian's group at a speed of 1 kilometer per second. Wherever it was annihilated, whether it was a meteorite, a fragment of a spaceship, or something else, it instantly turned into spatial energy and disappeared. The cultivators far away, regardless of whether they were stellar warriors or stellar domain lords, all disappeared along with the annihilation of the space. There was a stellar domain lord cultivator who was blocked by a meteorite. He saw his legs disappear, then his waist disappear, until his consciousness completely disappeared. During this entire process, this stellar domain lord cultivator didn't even make a sound. There was only a shocked expression on his face. This was because he didn't feel anything during the annihilation of his body. Yang Tian didn't know how much time they had. When he saw that the little blue dragon's transformation was complete, he immediately shouted, "Quick, get on!" The three of them quickly sat on the little blue dragon's back. At this moment, the annihilation of the space was still about 5 kilometers away from Yang Tian's group. Roar! When Yang Tian and the others sat on the little blue dragon's back, the little blue dragon let out a roar. The golden horn on its head suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light. Suddenly, the little blue dragon swung its tail. Its body moved and it began to fly forward rapidly. Even the little blue dragon needed some time to accelerate from a standstill to its maximum speed. The little blue dragon's speed kept increasing at 3 kilometers per second, 4 kilometers per second, 5 kilometers per second, 8 kilometers per second, 10 kilometers per second. There was a total of 5 seconds. At the last second, the three of them turned their heads and saw the situation behind them. Shocked expressions appeared on their faces. This was because the annihilation of the space had already come into contact with the little blue dragon's tail. When they saw this, the three of them felt their hearts in their throat. Fortunately, the little blue dragon's speed quickly reached its current maximum speed. When the annihilation of the space caused a portion of the little blue dragon's tail to disappear, the little blue dragon finally left the annihilation behind. Boom! 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 For a moment, Yang Tian and the others' ears were filled with intense crashing sounds. This was the sound of the little blue dragon constantly crashing into meteorites as it moved forward. During this process, Yang Tian could clearly feel that the little blue dragon's aura was becoming weaker and weaker. He had established a blood contract with the little blue dragon. Naturally, he could feel the energy changes in the little blue dragon's body. He didn't know if the little blue dragon could hold on until the last moment. Yang Tian was very worried at this moment. If the little blue dragon didn't do this and left alone, its speed could increase even faster. Chapter 388. While Yang Tian was anxiously waiting, the meteors blocking the little blue dragon's path suddenly disappeared. What appeared in front of Yang Tian and the others was a huge pyramid-shaped building made of countless meteors. At this time, they could see a square door at the bottom of this pyramid slowly falling down. Some of the cultivators who arrived before Yang Tian and the others rushed into the stone door that was about to close. Seeing this, Yang Tian became nervous again. Looking at the speed at which the door was falling, by the time they arrived, with the little blue dragon's huge body, they probably wouldn't be able to enter. Luckily, the little blue dragon had already put some distance between itself and the area of spatial annihilation, so there should be enough time. As the little blue dragon flew, the pyramid became bigger and bigger in the eyes of Yang Tian and the others. Finally, they were about to enter this sanctuary. As this huge pyramid got closer and closer, Yang Tian and the others saw that all the meteors that made up this pyramid were carved with runes. Seeing these runes, Yang Tian's mind became a little dizzy. Yang Tian hadn't felt this kind of feeling in a long time. He remembered when he was in high school on Earth, there was an exam where he didn't know how to do a question, so he used a stupid method to calculate it. After he finished, his head felt like this. He had used too much of his brain power. F***ck, what are you doing? Yang Tian said angrily in his mind. In this kind of life and death situation, if he made a mistake, he would lose his life. The strange program was actually messing around in his mind. How could Yang Tian not be angry? I am quickly recording the runes information. These runes should be related to spatial energy. If I can completely record them, I can unlock all of your storage tools, the strange program said. Stop recording. If you do this again, we'll all die together. Yang Tian said loudly in his mind. Oh, I understand, the strange program said calmly. Phew, at this time, Yang Tian let out a long breath and found that his mind was finally a lot clearer. At this time, the little blue dragon had already rushed to the front of the stone door of the pyramid, and was about 1 kilometer away from the stone door. The door of the pyramid had already fallen to the bottom, and was about 3 meters away. At this time, the little blue dragon had already started to slow down. If it was still flying at its fastest speed, it would immediately hit the falling heavy stone door. With the little blue dragon's current body, it wouldn't be able to get in no matter what, unless it broke the heavy stone door's door. This was obviously impossible. There were also countless runes on the stone door. This pyramid was able to defend against the annihilation of space. Naturally, it would be able to block the impact of the little azure dragon. Ha ha ha! At this time, a loud laugh came from the heavy stone door's stone. The light behind the door was very dim, so they couldn't see what was going on inside. Hearing the laughter, Yang Tian immediately had a bad premonition. Yang Tian, go to hell! After the loud laugh, when the little blue dragon was only a few hundred meters away from the stone door, another cold shout came. This was the voice of a middle-aged man. Sound could not be transmitted through the air. The other party used a special energy to deliberately let Yang Tian and the others hear. Hearing this, Yang Tian knew that this was bad. At the same time, a thick light red beam shot out from behind the pyramid's stone door. This was the beam shot by the particle cannon. In order to save Yang Tian and the others, the little blue dragon had used up almost all of its energy. At this time, how could it withstand this attack? At this moment, Yang Tian used all of his spiritual power to form a spiritual energy shield in front of the little blue dragon. Boom! In an instant, the light red energy beam hit Yang Tian's spiritual energy shield. The strong impact made Yang Tian's head roar, as if he was struck by lightning. The energy feedback from the spiritual energy shook Yang Tian's brain, causing the power in his body to become chaotic. Some of the capillaries in his body ruptured, and Yang Tian could not help but spit out a big mouthful of blood. Although he was injured, Yang Tian still held on. He could not let this beam hit the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon was still rushing forward. It knew that this was not the time to hide. If it delayed, it and Yang Tian and the others would have to face an even more terrifying spatial annihilation. The little blue dragon's eyes were determined. Even if it died in the end, it would send Yang Tian safely to the door. When Yang Tian could not hold on any longer, Chu Yen Guiying immediately reacted and used all of her spiritual power to help Yang Tian. The spiritual power of the two merged perfectly, forming a thick energy shield. Because Yang Tian's spiritual power world was built with the help of Chu Yen Guiying, there was a close relationship between their spiritual powers. The beam of light from the stone door did not last for a moment. It lasted for a full 2 seconds. In the last 0.5 seconds, the spiritual energy shield created by Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying was finally destroyed. The beam of light that was as thick as a person's thigh hit the little blue dragon's forehead. The little blue dragon's spiritual power had been depleted by more than half, and a big black hole was burned in its forehead. Xiao Long, seeing this, Yang Tian was shocked and could not help but cry out. Yang Tian felt a heart-wrenching pain in his heart. In addition to psychological reasons, it was also because the little blue dragon's body had been destroyed. The blood contract it had signed with the little blue dragon caused this intense pain. Yang Tian's vision turned black. At this critical moment, he could not faint. Yang Tian bit the outside and endured the intense pain, trying to stay awake. At this time, his vision was flickering. Although the little blue dragon was heavily injured, the inertia of the impact had brought it to the stone door. At this time, the stone door was less than a meter away from the bottom. The little blue dragon blinked weakly, opened its mouth, and spat out a golden dragon ball. Then, it slowly closed its eyes. After suffering a fatal injury, the little blue dragon's life force had become extremely weak. In this short moment, a memory suddenly appeared in Yang Tian's mind, pring. Resisting the pain in his heart, Yang Tian used all his strength to hit the 2 golden dragon horns of the little blue dragon. The 2 dragon horns fell off. Yang Tian waved his hand and immediately put the 2 dragon horns into the storage space. He hugged the football-sized golden dragon ball that the little blue dragon had spat out. "Take me in." Yang Tian, who was hugging the dragon ball tightly, said the last sentence before he could not hold on and fainted. Soli immediately pulled Yang Tian up and rushed into the stone door with Chu Yen and Guiying. When they took Yang Tian through the stone door, they turned around and found that the little blue dragon's huge body had been mostly annihilated. Chapter 389. Boom! When the space annihilation finally touched the pyramid, the stone door fell with a loud noise. Although the stone door was closed, Chu Yen, Guiying, and Soli were still very worried. They were able to hide inside, but it was not certain if this building could withstand the space annihilation. Fortunately, the stone door did not disappear after that. The three of them who were hiding behind the stone door were fine. At this time, outside the bubble space, the bubble space disappeared. The hatch of the Superstar Academy's spaceship was open. Professor Shenwu and Professor Fu Wei, the two old men, were squatting at the entrance of the spaceship. Seeing that the bubble had been destroyed, Professor Shenwu sighed and said, "Yes, only a few hundred people managed to escape." Professor Fu Wei nodded and said with some sadness. Professor Shenwu took out a wine flask and 2 wine cups from his storage bracelet. After pouring 2 glasses of wine, Professor Shenwu handed one to Professor Fu Wei. "What is this?" Professor Fu Wei looked at the light green wine in the glass and asked curiously. Professor Shenwu said, "This is called wine. It's very good. Yang Tian gave it to me. Try it. If you like it, I'll ask him to send some to you when he comes back." Professor Fu Wei took the cup with a dubious look and took a sip. This wine had been improved by Yang Tian twice, and the alcohol content was very high. Although it was Professor Fu Wei's first time drinking it, he did not choke. "It doesn't taste good. It has a numbing effect on the nerves." After tasting it, Professor Fu Wei was like a first-time Professor Shenwu, talking about all the bad things about the wine. "If it's not good, then forget it." Professor Shenwu rolled his eyes at Professor Fu Wei. But Professor Fu Wei licked his lips and smiled. "Another glass." The two drank a few glasses of wine and talked about the bubble space again. The topic started with Yang Tian. "This thing is actually not bad. You said it was made by Yang Tian. Doesn't that mean it will disappear in the future?" Professor Fu Wei suddenly shook his head. Professor Shen Wei smiled and said, "Old thing, you're a researcher of runes. Didn't you notice anything?" Professor Fu Wei smiled. "Of course. When the bubble shattered, this old man sensed the energy fluctuations of a spatial rune. Unfortunately, due to the lack of time, this rune combination was not completed in the end. It would be good if this spatial rune combination could last for a few days. But what?" Professor Shenwu asked with a smile. Professor Fu Wei thought for a moment and said, "Let's go back first. Waiting here was also a waste of time. Even if they manage to escape, it's impossible for them to appear in this place." The words of the two professors were heard by the 10 or so advanced students on the spaceship. When they came out of the bubble space, the senior students were still in a state of shock. Now that they finally came back to their senses, one of the senior students couldn't help but ask, "Professors, you just said that the person in the bubble space might still be alive?" "Yes." Professor Fu Wei nodded. "Let's see how lucky they are. You guys are pretty lucky. However, you're not the luckiest." After Professor Fu Wei finished speaking, he stood up and dragged Professor Shenwu into the cabin, letting the spaceship close the cabin door. A moment later, the Super Academy's spaceship quickly left and returned along the original path. This time, there were more than 100 students from the Superstar Academy who entered the bubble space. Now, only 13 of them returned. The reason why these 13 people could come out so quickly was because they had been waiting at the entrance of the bubble space. When the bubble space was about to collapse, they came out in advance. Unfortunately, none of the 13 people found a corpse, let alone the corpse of the Flying Cloud High Priest. For them, it was a wasted trip. However, compared to the dead students, they were luckier. The Superstar Academy's spaceship left, but there were still many spaceships waiting near the bubble space. It was unknown why these people were still waiting. At this moment, Soli, Chuyen, Guing, and Yang Tian's crisis was still not over. After the stone door fell, there was still air. The armor's test results showed that this was a suitable place for humans to live. Yang Tian was injured. Soli took off Yang Tian's helmet. Seeing that Yang Tian's complexion and breathing were normal, she was relieved. The two girls then took off their helmets as well. They were also very sad about the little blue dragon's death. They sat behind the stone door for a long time without saying a word. A few minutes later, footsteps were suddenly heard. Soli, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying turned their heads at the same time and looked into the passage. This building was made up of countless meteorites. Among them, there were many glowing meteorites. Although the light was not very strong, they could see dozens of meters away. In their eyes, a group of men in black armor walked over. After the dozen or so men in black armor appeared, one of them sneered and said, "You're still alive. It's a pity that a powerful pet beast died. Hand over that inner core and we'll let you go." Yang Tian was sleeping, hugging the little blue dragon's golden inner core tightly. Perhaps he heard the words of the men in black armor in his sleep. At this moment, his brows furrowed and he hugged the inner core even tighter. Chu Yen Guiying had been with Yang Tian for a long time. She understood the importance of the little blue dragon to Yang Tian better than Soli. She knew that if the little blue dragon was not around, they would not have been able to leave the Death Star field. The death of the little blue dragon made Chu Yen Guiying very sad, even though the little blue dragon wasn't very close to her. As soon as this man in black armor finished speaking, Chu Yen Guiying sneered and said, "I advise you to run away before Yang Tian wakes up. Xiao Long is dead. When he wakes up, he'll definitely go crazy." While Chu Yen Guiying was speaking, Soli, who was sitting on the ground and looking at Yang Tian, suddenly flicked her whip. She then said coldly, "If you want the inner core, you'll have to kill us first." After saying that, Soli placed Yang Tian flat on the ground and stood up. Chu Yen Guiying also took out her staff from her storage bracelet and prepared for battle. At this moment, this group of men in black armor was about 20 meters away from Soli's group. Although the two women were in a battle stance, the dozen or so black-armored men were still slowly approaching them. This passage was actually very wide. It was about 10 meters wide and 5 meters tall. It was enough to accommodate two people fighting side by side. When the men in black armor approached, Soli asked coldly, "Did you kill Xiao Long with a particle cannon just now?" "That's right." A man in black armor nodded and said, "Who told him to offend our Taichu family?" "Who are you?" Soli asked again. The man in black armor who had been talking to Soli's group stopped and took off his helmet. Chapter 390. After taking off the helmet, a handsome face appeared in front of Soli and Chu Yen Guiying's eyes. It was a silver-haired young man. Although he was young, he was a Star Lord, only one level lower than Primordial Stone Star. "Let me introduce myself." The young man smiled and bowed to Soli and Chu Yen Guiying. After straightening up, he said, "I'm Primordial Bai Qin, Primordial Star's younger brother, from a different mother." "So you're Primordial Bai Qin." Soli frowned as soon as the young man said his name. Soli and Chu Yen Guiying finally understood why these black-armored people dared to leave Primordial Yao. Primordial Yao probably didn't even know that the person in charge wasn't him but Primordial Bai Qin. This person was much more scheming than Primordial Yao. Otherwise, the little blue dragon wouldn't have died at their hands. No, the little blue dragon shouldn't be dead because its life force hadn't completely disappeared. Primordial Bai Qin saw the change in Soli's eyes and smiled proudly. "So you know me. I'm very honored." Soli nodded. "I've heard about you from some students, but your reputation isn't very good." Oh, when Absolute Beginning Bai Qin heard this, a very surprised expression appeared on his face. He then asked curiously, "What did they say about me?" Soli said, "They said you like to collect women, beautiful women." Ha ha ha. Bai Qin couldn't help but laugh when he heard Soli's words. "My lord, they're stalling for time." One of the black-armored men behind Tai Chu Bai Qin finally couldn't help but remind Tai Chu Bai Qin. Although the person who spoke was wearing black armor and his face couldn't be seen clearly, one could tell from his voice that he was a middle-aged man. Moreover, he was the one who operated the particle cannon and fired the particle beam at the little blue dragon. The moment this person finished speaking, Tai Chu Bai Chun stopped laughing and said, "So what if he wakes up?" But with his subordinate's reminder, Tai Chu Bai Chun didn't want to waste time with Soli and the others. He said, "Give me Yang Tian and the beast core, then you can become my women. You've all heard of me, so you naturally know that I, Absolute Beginning Bai Chun, treat my women very well." As soon as Absolute Beginning Bai Chun finished speaking, Soli, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying showed disdain on their faces. Seeing the expressions on the two women's faces, Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's handsome face darkened. After a moment of silence, Absolute Beginning Bai Chen gritted his teeth and said, "Kill them!" At this moment, Yang Tian opened his eyes and stood up abruptly. The two black-armored men who had just rushed out suddenly stopped because they saw that Yang Tian had woken up. Yang Tian's body emitted a very dangerous aura. "You're all going to die." Yang Tian walked past the two women and put the little blue dragon's golden inner core in Chu Yen and Gu Ying's arms. He then took out a red blade from his storage bracelet and said coldly. Although Yang Tian's voice was soft, his words carried a bone-piercing chill. Last time, when the little blue dragon had advanced, it had been injured by someone and Yang Tian had gone crazy. At this time, the little blue dragon was only left with an inner core and a pair of golden dragon horns. Yang Tian appeared very calm. However, the current Yang Tian gave Soli an even more dangerous feeling. Crazy people weren't scary, but people who didn't care about their lives were the scariest. Soli knew that Yang Tian no longer cared about his own life in order to kill these people and avenge the little blue dragon. Looking at Yang Tian's eyes, she knew that his eyes were full of indifference. Not only did he not care about other people's lives, but he also cared about his own. Soli picked up Yang Tian's helmet from the ground and silently put it on for Yang Tian. Seeing Yang Tian's cold eyes, Tai Chu Bai Chen didn't care too much. He sneered and said to his subordinates, "What are you waiting for? Kill them." Before Tai Chu Bai Chen finished speaking, Yang Tian and Tai Chu Bai Chen's two subordinates moved together. Less than 10 meters away, both sides held their blades and swung them in the air. Yang Tian's red wind blade collided with the other's invisible blade chi. With a boom, the resulting airflow formed a wild gale in the tunnel. This building was really sturdy. Even the rune-covered meteor stone didn't fall off after being hit by the blade chi. At this moment, Yang Tian didn't care about the blade chi at all. When the saber energy of the two black-armored men landed on Yang Tian's armor, the runes inscribed on Yang Tian's body, which were controlled by a strange program, suddenly lit up and neutralized the saber energy. On the other hand, Yang Tian's red saber energy left several deep saber marks on the armor of the two opponents. The two men in black armor were forced to take a few steps back by Yang Tian's blade energy. Yang Tian used this opportunity to charge towards the two of them. This tunnel was about 10 meters wide and was a good place for close combat. Of course, this was only true for Yang Tian. Seeing Yang Tian rushing over, the two armored men raised their blades and slashed at Yang Tian. One of them held his blade with both hands and slashed vertically at Yang Tian's head. The other swept toward Yang Tian's waist from the side. Pung! Pung! Their blades successfully hit Yang Tian's armor. But what surprised them was that their blades didn't actually come into contact with Yang Tian's armor before they were repelled by a powerful force. This situation stunned the two of them. Even if it was just a short moment, it was enough for Yang Tian. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yang Tian swung his blade. The red blade followed an unbelievable path and slashed across the necks of the two armored men. This was the armor's weak point. Yang Tian's blade easily broke through their armor. The origin power contained in the blade instantly rushed into their bodies. After Yang Tian slashed, he didn't stop. He walked past the two armored men who had yet to fall and walked toward White Dawn. Pung! Pung! After Yang Tian walked past them, the two armored men's bodies fell to the ground. What shocked Alpha Primordium by Chun and the others was that the two corpses were like a pile of mud. Some blood-red liquid flowed out of Black Armor's neck. When Yang Tian killed the two, he used enough origin power to destroy their bodies. Seeing this, White Dawn and his dozen or so subordinates couldn't help but take a few steps back. "You too, go." Seeing Yang Tian slowly approaching, White Dawn woke up from his shock. He turned around and said to the two armored men behind him. The two armored men looked at each other and walked toward Yang Tian helplessly. They looked very careful. The realms of these two people were not as high as the two people Yang Tian had just killed. They were only stellar warriors, while the two people Yang Tian had killed were stellar warlord-level cultivators. They didn't dare flee from Alpha Origin by Chen. Even if they died, they had to brace themselves. Otherwise, with Alpha Origin by Chen's ruthless methods, disobeying his orders would result in a fate worse than death. Chapter 391. Qi. 2 sounds of armor being torn apart could be heard. Two stellar warrior-level cultivators, Yang Tian did not even let their weapons land on him before they were killed. The combat power of these two was far inferior to Yang Tian's. Similarly, the bodies of the two cultivators who were killed by Yang Tian also turned into a pile of mud. In his extreme anger, Yang Tian was not stingy with his origin power. Go together. In less than 2 minutes, 4 of his subordinates had been killed by Yang Tian, and they had died miserably. At this moment, Bai Chen seemed to be panicking and shouted. Behind Alpha Primordium Bai Chen were 10 cultivators in black armor. None of the 10 dared to disobey Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's orders. The moment Absolute Beginning Bai Chen finished speaking, all of them charged towards Yang Tian. The passage was only 10 meters wide, so the 10 armored cultivators could not spread out. Only 2 of them could fight Yang Tian. Facing the 10 cultivators, Yang Tian quickly swung his sword. Hiss, 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 hiss. Dozens of crescent-shaped sword energies shot out from Yang Tian's red sword and slashed at the charging armored cultivators. On the other hand, the other party also sent out dense saber chi and powerful fist energy at Yang Tian. Boom, boom, boom. In the passage, the sound of energy colliding could be heard. The overflowing energy collided with the meteorite covered in runes, producing a series of popping noises. Every time they were hit by energy, the runes on the meteor stones would light up and dissolve the energy. The power that Yang Tian and the other cultivators had used before did not cause any damage to the meteor stones. Soli and Chu Yen Guang stood behind Yang Tian and also felt a strong impact. Chu Yen Guang immediately used her mind power to form an energy shield in front of her and held on bitterly. Fortunately, the battle only lasted for about 5 minutes. In the end, only Yang Tian was left standing in the passage. A total of 13 corpses of the black armored men were strewn all over the ground. At this moment, they could see that Yang Tian's shoulders were trembling slightly. It seemed that he was panting, and it seemed that he was very tired. Although it was only a few minutes, Yang Tian concentrated and exerted all his strength. After the battle ended, Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's figure was nowhere to be seen. While Yang Tian and his 10 subordinates were fighting, he had retreated to the back and taken the opportunity to escape. "Yang Tian, are you all right?" After the battle had ended, Chu Yen Guang saw that Yang Tian hadn't moved. She quickly walked over and asked worriedly. Yang Tian replied indifferently, "I'm fine. Is Xiao Long still alive?" Soli, who had followed closely behind, turned to look at the golden inner core of the little blue dragon that Chu Yen Guang was holding and asked curiously. Although the little blue dragon's body was destroyed, at the last moment, Yang Tian had bought the little blue dragon's pair of golden dragon horns and held this golden inner core. Even now, this inner core was still emitting a weak aura of life. At the mention of the little blue dragon, Yang Tian let out a long sigh and nodded. Xiao Long can be revived, but he needs a quiet place. At that time, there can't be any disturbances. Before entering this place, Yang Tian had awakened a part of the dragon race's memories in his mind. This allowed him to know that it was as if he had lived to rebuild the body of the little blue dragon. Yang Tian also had the dragon race's inherited memories that the little blue dragon had given him. This memory allowed Yang Tian to use the power of the dragon orb to transform. Every time his realm increased, or at a critical moment, he would be able to awaken a part of the dragon race's inherited memories. If done well, the reborn little blue dragon would be like a phoenix rising from the ashes, becoming even more powerful. Let's go. Let's go in and take a look. Yang Tian was silent for a moment before saying indifferently. After he finished speaking, he strode forward. Soli noticed that Yang Tian's mood was a bit low, so she guessed that the process of reviving the little blue dragon would be difficult. After walking for several hundred meters, they came out of a 10-meter-wide passage and arrived at a spacious place. This was a triangular space. At this moment, no less than 1,000 people were gathered here. Most of the people had taken off their helmet. Under such circumstances, there was no fighting. Some people were probably afraid that fighting would destroy this pyramid-shaped building. Although some time had passed, no one knew the situation outside. What if the space was still there? Yang Tian glanced around and saw a few familiar faces. These people should be students of the Superstar Academy. When Yang Tian, Soli, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying walked in, everyone looked at them. Some people quickly noticed the golden core in Chu Yan and Gu Ying's arms. Their eyes lit up with greed. The little blue dragon's core was emitting powerful energy wave. If it was made into a beast core, it would be at least a Star Lord level beast core, or even a Stellar Domain Lord level beast core. Yang Tian stood at the entrance of the passage, glanced at the 1,000 people, took off his helmet, and said indifferently, "Absolute beginning, Bai Chen, come out." Yang Tian's voice was very low, echoing in this triangular space. Some people looked around, wanting to see who Yang Tian was looking for. Not long after Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's group entered the passage, the sounds of battle could be heard. Everyone here knew what had happened, but they didn't want to meddle in other people's business. After Yang Tian said that, 3 minutes passed and no one came out. Yang Tian sneered. "Are the people of the Absolute Beginning family all trash? Didn't you say that you wanted to protect your family's honor? Why don't you dare come out and fight me?" Although they didn't know what Yang Tian meant by me, they knew that Yang Tian was scolding them. After Yang Tian said that, no one came out. More than half of the people the Absolute Beginning family sent to this bubble space had died because of the space annihilation. The rest, except for Absolute Beginning Bai Chen, were all killed by Yang Tian. It seemed that Absolute Beginning Bai Chen wanted to be a coward. Compared to someone like Absolute Beginning Yao, one had to admit that Absolute Beginning Bai Chen was quite patient. This guy was hiding among thousands of people. It would be quite troublesome to find him. However, revenge had to be taken for the little blue dragon. Yang Tian scanned the thousands of people again. "Everyone, please cooperate. Those who are wearing helmets, please take them off. Thank you. Otherwise what?" Before Yang Tian could finish, a helmeted cultivator in red armor asked with a sneer, "Otherwise what?" Among the thousands of people, there were at least 300 to 400 who were still wearing helmet. Yang Tian's words naturally made the helmeted people unhappy. Even those who weren't wearing helmets felt the same. As soon as the red-armored cultivator finished speaking, many who weren't wearing helmets put them on. Cultivators were arrogant and naturally didn't like Yang Tian's attitude. Yang Tian lowered his head slightly. The spacious triangular space suddenly quieted down. Another 3 minutes passed. Chapter 392. In these 3 minutes, they were all looking at Yang Tian, waiting for his answer. Obviously, These people did not take Yang Tian's words seriously. None of the people who were wearing helmets took off their helmet. Whoosh! Suddenly, Yang Tian's figure flashed and appeared in front of a helmeted black armored man closest to him. With a single slash, he beheaded the other party. Yang Tian used all his strength. When the red blade rubbed against the man's armor, there was a piercing sound. After Yang Tian killed this man, everyone was stunned. They did not expect that Yang Tian would dare to kill someone here. Even the man who was killed did not expect that Yang Tian would kill him. "This is my answer." Yang Tian glanced at everyone again and said calmly. If there were not many people here, Yang Tian would not have done this. But there were so many people and their auras were in a mess. It was impossible to find Taichu Bai Chun. Yang Tian was forced into a corner. In this triangular space, everyone stood up and took out their weapons as they looked at Yang Tian cautiously. But those who were wearing helmets did not take off their helmet. They were clearly planning to fight Yang Tian to the death. Everyone liked to follow the crowd and cared about their faces. In this situation, if they took off their helmets after a few words from Yang Tian and let Yang Tian see their faces, it would be too embarrassing. Yang Tian knew that if he was one of them and encountered the same situation, he would probably do the same. But in order to avenge the little blue dragon, Yang Tian did not care about anything else. Not to mention 1,000 people, even if there were 10,000 or 100,000 people, so what? The people here had probably all killed people before, none of them were good people. Even Yang Tian himself knew that he was not a good person. Being a good person would not allow one to go far on the path of cultivation. Since they were not good people, there was no psychological burden to kill them. "Everyone, let's go and kill him. I don't believe that he can defeat so many of us alone." Suddenly, someone shouted loudly. As soon as this was said, the atmosphere in this triangular space became even more tense. Many people who were not wearing helmets looked coldly at Yang Tian and put on their helmet. Some people who were not wearing helmets consciously retreated to the three corners of this triangular space and gave up the middle. There were only about 100 people who did not intend to be enemies with Yang Tian, and most of them were star warriors. An intense battle was about to break out. Soli pulled Chu Yen Guiying and retreated back into the tunnel. Soli also had strong combat power, but she could not help Yang Tian. She could only protect Guiying. "There are so many people here." After returning to the tunnel, Guiying looked at the inner core in her arms and asked Soli worriedly. Soli smiled. "He will be fine. Don't forget that his armor is very strong and has at least doubled his combat power. Also, his origin power is injured by his power. If you are not seriously injured and lose your ability to fight, you will die immediately." Soli's words hit the nail on the head. During the battle with Absolute beginning by Chen's subordinates, Soli noticed that their weapons were unable to leave any marks on Yang Tian's body. The runes on them lit up and blocked the power of the other party's attacks. Yang Tian could finish off his opponent with a single slash. Even if he only injured the opponent's arm, they would die immediately. The two women had retreated 100 meters while talking, and the sounds of fighting could be heard from the triangular space ahead. Bang, 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 several blades, staff-type weapons, chain-type weapons, all of them struck Yang Tian's body together, emitting a series of dull sounds. Chi. Bang! Yang Tian held the blade with both hands and stabbed forward, piercing through a person's armor. He then raised his leg and kicked the already dead body away. Then, Yang Tian swung his blade again, sending out blade energy that forced back a large number of people surrounding him. Under the mask, Yang Tian's expression was very calm. His eyes were cold, and when he swung his blade, he gave off a mechanical feeling. The most terrifying thing was that the cutting power of the red saber in Yang Tian's hand was too strong. No matter how high the grade of the armor one was wearing, if the saber landed on one's body, the result would be death. Powerful slicing ability, terrifying strength attribute, and the defensive power of the armor on Yang Tian's body. When these three attributes were combined, his combat power was truly terrifying. In a short minute, more than 10 people were killed by Yang Tian. But in this kind of battle, losing a dozen or so people would not be noticed. Bang bang bang, chi chi chi, boom, boom. Yang Tian used such a simple and efficient way of killing to fight against thousands of people. 5 minutes passed by quickly. Suddenly, Yang Tian unleashed a powerful blade energy. In a flash, he arrived at the entrance of the square tunnel. He swung his blade and killed 2 people wearing light blue armor and black armor. Clearly, these 2 wanted to use this opportunity to attack Soli and the others and take the little blue dragon's orb. Yang Tian, who had gone mad, did not lose his mind. He kept his eyes on the entrance. After killing the 2 men, Yang Tian took a step back and leaned on his saber as he panted heavily. While it was only a few minutes, Yang Tian had used all his strength. It was even more tiring than when he killed Taichu, Bai Chen's subordinate. Crack, suddenly, the energy chamber on the chest of Yang Tian's armor opened. The 3 pieces of star crystals inside had been used up. If he did not replenish his energy soon, the armor on Yang Tian's body would be like an ordinary iron shell, easily broken apart by a single slash. And Yang Tian's outcome was predictable. Without the protection of the armor, he could only consume his own energy. Once his energy was used up, he would be cut into pieces. He would not even have the time to reform his body. Seeing this, some people were pleasantly surprised. They now knew that Yang Tian's armor had a weakness as well, and that was that it consumed energy very quickly. There was nothing perfect in this world. Everyone, attack together and kill him. Suddenly, someone yelled. Then, several people jumped up and slashed at Yang Tian with their blades. Yang Tian panted as he lifted his head to take a look. He then turned around and took out 3 star crystals from his storage bracelet. Bang bang bang, several weapons slashed at Yang Tian's back. There was also a perverted guy who used a spike to stab at Yang Tian's butt. What they did not expect was that Yang Tian's armor, which did not have any stellar crystals, was able to block their attacks. At this time, Yang Tian really wanted to tell these people that the strange program had helped him carve runes and could store energy. Chapter 393. This kind of energy storage function was only available in those rare top-tier armors. And Yang Tian's armor, no matter how one looked at it, did not look like a top-tier armor. Yang Tian quickly put the stellar crystal into the energy compartment of the armor. Then, he moved his body and shook off the weapons that were attacking him. Those who were attacking Yang Tian immediately dodged to the side. Yang Tian stood up and waved his red saber. If these people were from Earth, someone would definitely complain. Damn it! How are we going to fight this? Yang Tian held his saber and looked at the crowd coldly. The battle just now had already frightened many people. In just a few minutes, Yang Tian had killed dozens of people. The process of the battle was not as exciting as a one-on-one battle. It looked like ordinary people holding sabers and slashing at each other. There was no order, and the battle scene was extremely chaotic. At this time, Yang Tian did not move, and the others did not dare to move either. This triangular space suddenly became silent. Time passed slowly. After about 3 minutes, someone finally reacted and shouted, "Everyone, let's go! He wants to rest." With someone's reminder, everyone then understood that Yang Tian was deliberately stalling for time. Just now, they only noticed that Yang Tian's armor had no energy. They did not consider that Yang Tian was not a machine and could not continue fighting at such a high intensity. However, it was too late to remind them. Although it was only a short 3 minutes, Yang Tian had rested enough and recovered most of his energy. Whoosh! Yang Tian moved and turned into a black shadow, rushing toward the crowd in front of him. If he really wanted to kill all the thousands of people here, it would be very difficult for Yang Tian. Although the people here were not as strong as him, they were all elites of the Eternal Star Realm. Yang Tian only wanted to use a domineering massacre to scare everyone and achieve his goal. The battle was exactly the same as before. This time, Yang Tian was even crazier. A few minutes later, Yang Tian stood in the middle. The armored cultivators were more than 20 meters away from him. At Yang Tian's feet there were corpses everywhere. Over 100 people had already died under Yang Tian's saber in the two battles that were separated by more than 3 minutes. The people who stayed here were not from the same group. They came from different places. If the battle at the beginning was a battle of personal feelings, then it would have been over. Then in the second battle, Yang Tian was tired and gave others the hope of killing him. But now, no one was willing to step forward. Everyone put in more effort. He's already very tired. At this moment, a hoarse voice sounded. It was obvious that someone had deliberately altered their voice. However, no one stepped forward. At this time, Yang Tian was already exhausted. He had no choice but to control his breathing and make it a little longer. In addition to being tired, the stellar crystals in Yang Tian's armor were almost used up. After more than a minute, Yang Tian finally caught his breath and said calmly, "If you don't dare to come again, take off your helmets." Yang Tian's voice was the same as before. In the ears of others, it still sounded arrogant and proud. After his voice fell, no one stepped forward. "I admire you." After a while, one of them said something and took off his helmet. "I admire you too." Another person took off his helmet. Among cultivators, the strong were respected. Yang Tian had killed so many people that it made people fear him. The 3 words "I submit to you" gave these people a way out of the embarrassing situation. Those who were no longer willing to fight Yang Tian took off their helmets, put away their weapons, and retreated a distance away from Yang Tian. Among these people, there were men and women, young people and old people. After many of them took off their helmets, they still had displeased looks on their faces. This was no longer important to Yang Tian. "You're the guy who killed my brother. I'm going to kill you. You searched for you for so many years. Turns out that you're here. Return the stellar crystals you owe me. Ah, Mary, we finally meet again." After taking off his helmet, what Yang Tian did not expect was that many such things actually happened. Some people discovered their enemies. Some people discovered people who ran away without paying their debt. There were also people who discovered the woman they liked. Wasn't the universe very big? When Yang Tian saw this kind of situation, he felt that it was rather funny. They all took off their helmets, except for one person wearing blue armor who did not. Yang Tian swept a glance and set his gaze on this person. Looking at the figure, it was also exactly the same as Tai Chu Bai Chun. "Yang Tian, you actually found me. I have to say, you're really amazing." Tai Chu Bai Chun, whose armor had changed from black to blue, said as he took off his helmet and looked at Yang Tian with a smile. Yang Tian looked at Tai Chu Bai Chun's handsome face and narrowed his eyes slightly. Just as he was about to step forward and kill this guy, Tai Chu Bai Chun raised his hand and said coldly, "Wait." As he said that, a silver-white ball the size of a soccer ball appeared in Tai Chu Bai Chun's hand. The surface of the ball was covered with warning words and markings. What was this? Many people were puzzled when they saw the thing in Tai Chu Bai Chun's hand. Some people took a few steps back in shock, staying far away from Tai Chu Bai Chun. Tai Chu Bai Chun saw the reactions of the people around him and said with a smile, "Many people don't know what this is, right? Let me explain. This is a type of super energy bomb. The power of the explosion can destroy a planet like the Ketla star. I think it's enough to destroy our current hiding place, right?" After Tai Chu Bai Chun said that, he looked at Yang Tian with a cold smile. "If you kill me, I'll activate this super energy bomb and we'll die together." After saying that, Tai Chu Bai Chen chuckled. As soon as Tai Chu Bai Chen said that, the people around him immediately retreated far away from him. But soon, Tai Chu Bai Chen's smile froze on his face, because Yang Tian was actually holding a knife and walking quickly towards him. "If you have the guts, detonate it immediately," Yang Tian said as he walked. Soon, Yang Tian walked to a place 3 meters away from Tai Chu Bai Chen and stood still. Tai Chu Bai Chen looked at Yang Tian in front of him with a bewildered expression and was momentarily speechless. He didn't believe that Yang Tian really wasn't afraid of death. But he was very unwilling to activate this bomb. What should he do? "Behind you." Just as Tai Chu Bai Chen couldn't make up his mind, Yang Tian raised his hand and pointed behind Tai Chu Bai Chen. Tai Chu Bai Chen frowned but didn't turn his head. He only moved his eyes slightly. At that moment, Yang Tian waved his hand and the super energy bomb in Tai Chu Bai Chen's hand suddenly disappeared. This super energy bomb was naturally stored in Yang Tian's storage bracelet. The crisis was resolved just like that. Chapter 394. Yang Tian put the bomb into his storage bracelet. Of course, Primordial Bai Chen couldn't detonate it. "You're very brave." After the bomb was taken away, Primordial Bai Chen didn't seem as cowardly as Primordial Yao. Instead, he looked at Yang Tian's mask and said calmly. Yang Tian shook his head. "It's not that I'm brave. It's just that you can't make up your mind to die with me. You're too afraid of death." "Ha ha." Primordial Bai Chen laughed. "You know me well." After Primordial Bai Chen said that, Yang Tian took a dozen steps back, took off his helmet and hung it on his back. Primordial Bai Chen also took out his weapon. Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's weapon was a silver-white long blade that was about 2 meters long and slightly curved. Although he couldn't make up his mind to die with Yang Tian, Primordial Bai Chen still had the courage to fight Yang Tian. The surrounding cultivators stared intently at the two of them. Primordial Bai Chen was a stellar lord. Judging from Yang Tian's aura, Yang Tian was only at the peak of the stellar warrior level. There was a huge gap between their realms. However, in terms of true combat power, Yang Tian was probably slightly stronger. The black armor on Yang Tian's body could at least double his fighting power. Adding on Yang Tian's terrifying strength, if his fighting power were to be doubled again, it would probably be more than that. In the battle just then, the most powerful cultivators didn't attack Yang Tian. A powerful cultivator should at least maintain a bit of grace, shouldn't he? Whoosh! Suddenly, Primordial Bai Chen moved. He suddenly appeared 3 meters away from Yang Tian and slashed at Yang Tian's head. Yang Tian wasn't wearing a helmet. His head was Yang Tian's weakness. At the same time, powerful sword chi came from the sword. Before the saber arrived, the saber chi arrived first. What was surprising was that Yang Tian actually didn't dodge this saber. Did he not want to live anymore? At this moment, this thought appeared in many people's minds. Of course not. Poof, poof. First, the saber chi chopped down on Yang Tian's head, followed by the body of the saber. It was equivalent to 2 continuous forces chopping down on Yang Tian's head. What was strange was that Alpha Primordium White Star's blade was unable to split open Yang Tian's head. Seeing this, not just the spectating cultivators, even Tai Chu Bai Chen himself did not understand why it was like this. Although Absolute Beginning Bai Chen hadn't used his full strength, this blade strike was still extremely powerful. Even a Stellar Domain Lord wouldn't be able to take this blade strike head-on. But Yang Tian did it. Yang Tian waved his saber under Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's astonished expression. The red wind blade from the saber cut open Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's neck. After that, Yang Tian turned around and walked toward the square tunnel. The battle between the two was so simple that no one had expected it. Bang! At this moment, Absolute Beginning Bai Chen's body fell to the ground. He was already dead. As Yang Tian walked, a stream of blood flowed from his head, down his face, to his chin, and dripped to the ground. Yang Tian was still injured. When they saw that Yang Tian was injured, some of them had uncertain expressions on their faces. The thought of immediately killing Yang Tian appeared in their minds. This was because star-state cultivators usually would not bleed. If there was a wound on their body, it would heal very quickly. There was only one possibility for this to happen to Yang Tian. That was, Yang Tian's body had a problem. Other than the bleeding wound, the cultivators could also sense that Yang Tian's qi was weaker than before. This was the best chance to kill Yang Tian. Yang Tian felt the killing intent. As he walked, he suddenly stopped and turned around. He coldly swept his gaze across the surroundings, and a mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Seeing the expression on Yang Tian's face, many people frowned. They all knew that Yang Tian was purposely angering them. Even so, no one dared to move. When a person was afraid of another person, every action and even every expression the other person made would make them think for a long time. Yang Tian quickly walked into the square entrance. From beginning to end, no one dared to look for trouble with Yang Tian. Soli, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying were already waiting at the entrance. When they saw Yang Tian walk over, they finally let out a sigh of relief. The three returned to the back of the stone door. Phew! After sitting down, Yang Tian let out a long breath. What happened just now? Why didn't you dodge that strike? Soli asked curiously. Yang Tian didn't immediately answer Soli's question. Instead, he took out a piece of stellar crystal from his storage bracelet. Soon, this piece of stellar crystal was absorbed by Yang Tian in less than 3 minutes. Then, another piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. Yang Tian kept taking out stellar crystals to replenish his energy. It seemed that Yang Tian was in a hurry to replenish his energy. Time passed second by second. After about an hour, Yang Tian, who had absorbed dozens of stellar crystals, finally stopped. At this time, Yang Tian seemed to be in better spirit. I took that strike head-on because I couldn't dodge it. After recovering some energy, Yang Tian said indifferently, so I didn't dodge it. Yang Tian was telling the truth. When he wanted to dodge Tai Chu by Chen strike, he suddenly felt that his body wasn't as strong as he wanted to. Only then did he realize that he had used too much energy. When Yang Tian thought about it, he felt a lingering fear. Then why was he fine? Of course, this was due to the strange program. At that critical moment, the strange program discovered Yang Tian's abnormality and briefly communicated with Yang Tian. After getting Yang Tian's approval, the strange program took control of a part of Yang Tian's nervous system. A rune appeared on Yang Tian's scalp. Of course, to Yang Tian, this rune was just a feeling. It was like using a tree branch to write a word on the palm of his hand. Even if the words weren't displayed, he could still determine what was written. During this process, Yang Tian used his force to activate the rune according to the traces left behind by the rune. Tai Chu by Chen's strike landed on this formless rune. Yang Tian didn't expect that runes could be expressed in such a way, using formless energy to write runes. This greatly broadened Yang Tian's knowledge. Then why were you fine when that strike landed on your head? Soli asked curiously. Yang Tian smiled and said, "That's my secret." "Alright." Soli nodded and didn't ask any further. Seeing the golden core left behind by the little blue dragon, Yang Tian took it from Chu Yan and Gu Ying and hugged it. The little blue dragon's current state made Yang Tian very sad. However, he had finally gotten his revenge. If he could leave this place smoothly, he had to revive the little blue dragon immediately. Yang Tian wasn't used to not having the little blue dragon by his side. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.